The main character was in a coma for 2 years, forcing him to drop out of school. But after returning to school to take the warrior class placement exam, he shattered every previous strength record. Even the guy who used to bully him back then ended up in the hospital after getting beaten by him. But when the main character transferred into the elite class, he was looked down on instead. The student recognized as having the greatest martial strength challenged him to a duel, but the main character only swung a single basic sword strike, and with that one move, he left his opponent unable to fight. It turned out that he had been training in his dreams for the entire 2 years. When he finally woke up, his muscles had become incredibly powerful. In the end, he decided to return to school. An emergency broadcast suddenly rang out across Liang City, announcing that the 7th biosphere had come under attack and ordering every resident to evacuate immediately. Explosions rocked the city as blazing meteors rained from the sky, but hidden among the flames was something far more mysterious. A single streak of blue light. A glowing crystal, crackling with violent energy, shot toward the ground at unbelievable speed, and before the young man standing below could react, it pierced straight through his heart. Blood poured from his mouth as blue flames spread through his veins. That young man was Shen Du, and unbelievably, that fatal moment wasn't the end of his life. It was where his story truly began. 2 years later, Liang City No. 1 High School held its Hongji class placement exam. Reserved for the school's 10 strongest students, the Hongji class represented the best opportunity to become an elite martial artist. The exam followed the same format as the college entrance test, with academics worth 225 points and the martial arts assessment worth 525, for a total of 750. In this world, intelligence mattered. But strength mattered much more. As students entered the testing hall, one thin young man quietly wondered whether he still had a chance to become a martial artist. That boy was Shen Du, the very same person who had survived a blue crystal piercing his heart. During his first year of high school, he had suddenly fallen into a coma, forcing his parents to request a 2-year leave that left him far behind everyone else. This was likely his final chance, and he had no intention of letting it slip away. On his way inside, Du accidentally bumped into another student and was immediately surrounded by several boys. They mocked him for disappearing from school for 2 years and still having the nerve to compete for the Hongji class. One of them sarcastically praised his confidence before asking if he really believed he was some kind of genius. Without losing his composure, Du grabbed the boy's hand, calmly thanked him for the concern, and suggested he worry about passing his own exam first. Then he walked away, leaving the group staring after him in disbelief. The Shen Du, they remembered, had been an easy target, but the person standing before them now carried a completely different presence. One bully wanted to attack him immediately, but his companion stopped him, reminding him that starting trouble before the exam could get them disqualified. It would be much safer to wait until the martial arts assessment. A cruel smile spread across his face as he imagined Du being crippled during an official match, where no one could blame them. Unfortunately for them, they still believed they were facing the same Shen Du from 2 years ago. Inside the examination hall, Du sat before his computer as the written test began with questions about world history and the birth of the High Martial Calendar. In the year 2842 of the Old Era, an otherworldly civilization invaded Earth. Humanity fought back with nuclear weapons, but 2 years later the war ended in complete defeat. More than 5 billion people died, while the remaining survivors were permanently transformed by nuclear radiation, allowing humanity to gradually surpass its physical limits. Then, on August 27th of the year 2860, every surviving adult reached life intensity level 2 and awakened martial arts powerful enough to fight back. That historic day marked both the end of the Old Era and the beginning of the High Martial Calendar. The rest of the exam focused on the heroes of those early wars and the failed policies that followed as humanity rebuilt civilization. Du answered every question without hesitation before submitting his paper and earning a perfect score. After all, he hadn't truly spent those 2 years peacefully sleeping in a hospital. Ever since the blue crystal entered his body, his consciousness had been pulled into a mysterious space every single night. The rewards he obtained there awakened his mental power and granted him a photographic memory, allowing him to answer questions covering lessons he had never even attended. Unfortunately, academics only accounted for 225 points. If he wanted to enter the Hongji class, everything depended on the martial arts assessment, and before facing it, he still needed one final night of preparation. After returning home, Du called out to his father, who welcomed him back and announced that dinner was ready. As Du stepped inside, his examination ticket slipped from his pocket. His mother picked it up, teased him for being careless, and reminded him not to lose it before the martial arts test. The family gathered around the table, where his father handed him a bottle. Du immediately recognized it as Qi blood powder and asked where it had come from. His father explained that he had bought it to improve Du's chances in the Hongji class exam. Du tried to refuse, insisting he could succeed without such an expensive supplement. His father simply patted him on the shoulder and told him not to worry. Even though neither he nor Du's mother was a martial artist, they were willing to spend everything they had to support both Du and his younger sister. No matter what their children needed, they would always find a way. Looking silently at the bottle, Du finally accepted it. A single serving of chi blood powder cost 2,000 credits, meaning his father had probably spent most of the family's savings. Later that night, Du sat alone on his bed, knowing that ordinary people in this world couldn't even guarantee the safety of their own families. Whenever monsters or alien civilizations attacked, only martial artists possessed the strength to protect those they loved. Tightening his grip around the bottle, he realized his future in the Hongji class would be decided tonight. Closing his eyes, he focused his mind, and when he opened them again, his bedroom had vanished. He now stood in a vast, frozen wasteland with a sword in his hand, while countless monsters surrounded a glowing crystal behind him. This was the mysterious realm his consciousness had entered every night since falling into his coma, and the rule here was incredibly simple: protect the crystal. If the monsters ever destroyed the crystal, Du would stay unconscious for the entire following day. But if he died while protecting it, he would instantly wake up in the real world with all of his energy fully restored. As ridiculous as it sounded, the fastest way to wake up was to get himself killed. It had taken several painful failures before he discovered that secret. In the beginning, he feared dying inside this mysterious world, and that hesitation repeatedly allowed the monsters to destroy the crystal, leaving him trapped in his coma. Everything changed once he realized death carried no real penalty. From then on, he stopped running, and every successful defense rewarded him by increasing either his life intensity or his mental power. Just then, the system announced that the next wave would arrive in 30 seconds. Du tightened his grip on his sword. Only the first successful defense each night granted rewards, but every battle afterwards still had value. Every monster sharpened his combat instincts, while every death taught him another lesson about survival. As the creatures rushed in, Du cut through the entire wave before opening his status panel. His life intensity had reached level 5.1, while his mental power stood at level 5. He could now lift 1,000 jin and move twice as fast as an ordinary person. Even so, those stats still weren't enough to guarantee a place in the Hongji class, much less make him the peerless genius everyone admired. Before he could think any further, another system warning appeared. The fifth wave had begun. A gigantic red dragon descended from the sky and immediately engulfed the battlefield in flames. Du barely dodged aside before the beast followed with a vicious claw strike. He leaped into the air to counterattack, only for its enormous tail to whip straight toward him. Raising his sword, he blocked the blow, but the impact still sent him skidding across the frozen ground. After dying to this dragon countless times, Du believed he had memorized every movement and attack pattern it possessed. Or at least, that's what he thought. Charging forward again, he activated the flowing light sword art, Breeze in the forest, driving his blade deep into the dragon's chest. The wounded beast roared furiously before suddenly entering a berserk state, making Du realize he had grown careless. Fortunately, he escaped without serious injuries. The dragon lowered its body and charged again, but Du slid beneath its massive frame and narrowly avoided being crushed. This time, he refused to panic. His future as a martial artist depended on tomorrow's exam, and tomorrow's exam depended on defeating this monster tonight. No matter how many times he had already died here, he refused to lose this battle. Sword raised high, Du rushed toward the dragon once more. The beast opened its jaws and unleashed another torrent of fire, but he twisted away at the last possible moment. It was then that Du realized his smaller body actually gave him an advantage against such a huge opponent. He struck with all his strength, wounding the dragon again. The beast roared and answered with another blast of flames. Staying light on his feet, Du activated his technique as the sound of drums and gongs echoed around him, unleashing a devastating slash that pierced straight through the dragon. The enormous creature crashed to the ground, and Du immediately followed with one final strike, ending the battle for good. The system congratulated him for successfully surviving all 5 waves of monster attacks. His mental power increased by 1 level, and he received the Void Immortal Visualization method as a reward. Du was genuinely surprised. According to everything he had learned at school, visualization methods were incredibly rare techniques used to actively cultivate mental power. Although the system itself could directly strengthen him, obtaining another cultivation method was always a huge advantage. Before he had time to celebrate, another notification warned that the next wave was approaching. An army of powerful monsters advanced toward the crystal. After counting 30 enemies, each with a life intensity 1 level above his own, Du immediately realized clearing the stage wasn't realistic yet. Rather than waste his strength, he decided to examine the newly acquired visualization method. In the next instant, his surroundings transformed into a digital world where an enormous, terrifying creature towered over him. At that moment, Du finally understood why it was called a visualization method. Simply staring at the giant beast forced him into a trial. Back in reality, Du remained seated in cultivation as a faint blue aura surrounded his body. His younger sister entered the room and called him to dinner. As he changed his shirt, she suddenly commented that he looked more handsome than before. Du laughed and jokingly asked if he hadn't been handsome already. Embarrassed, she pushed his hand away when he reached for her hair and told him to stop teasing her. After he left, she quietly wondered if her brother had always looked that handsome. Du also studied his reflection in the mirror. Since even his sister had noticed the difference, he couldn't help suspecting it was another effect of the void immortal visualization method. The following morning, he said goodbye to his father and younger sister before leaving for the martial arts assessment, while his father reminded him to stay safe. The exam was held inside the gymnasium of Liang City No. 1 High School. As soon as he arrived, Du could clearly feel how much stronger his body had become, proving just how effective the void immortal visualization method truly was. Before long, several students walked over. One of them sarcastically greeted him as the genius who had taken a 2-year leave, mocking the fact that he had ranked dead last before disappearing and asking if he had returned just to claim last place again in the Hongji class assessment. Du calmly replied that finishing last was still better than failing the academic exam altogether. The student immediately flew into a rage. With a faint smile, Du added that if the guy couldn't even hear properly, maybe he shouldn't bother taking the test. Furious, the bully warned him not to push his luck. Du casually pointed out that he hadn't mentioned anyone by name, so there was no reason to get offended unless the insult actually fit. A nearby classmate hurriedly stepped between them, reminding everyone that the assessment mattered far more than a pointless fight. Getting caught by a teacher before the exam simply wasn't worth it. Before walking away, the bully glared at Du and warned him that his turn would come soon enough. Once the group left, Du's classmate nervously said he was in serious trouble, but Du remained completely calm, saying he would deal with whatever happened. The classmate quickly explained that Du had no idea how much things had changed during his 2-year absence. The arrogant student was Fang Rui, whose second uncle had recently become the school's dean of students. That was why Fang Rui acted as though he owned the entire gym. There were even rumors that the dean had secretly leaked the martial arts assessment questions to Fang Rui. Hearing that, Du realized he would have to stay on guard in case Fang Rui worked together with the teachers to sabotage him. An announcement echoed through the gymnasium, explaining that the martial arts assessment would begin with a strength test before moving on to combat duels. Students were told to form groups of 10 based on their exam numbers and report to their assigned testing areas. Du casually told his classmate they should get in line, leaving him stunned by how relaxed Du remained despite everything waiting for him. The test followed a brutal last-place elimination system. Each student had one chance to strike a massive sandbag with full power, and whoever recorded the lowest score would be eliminated on the spot. Even Du's classmate admitted the rules were merciless. While waiting for his turn, Du carefully considered his strategy. He still needed enough stamina for the duel afterward, so he decided to rely on speed rather than wasting unnecessary strength. Nearby, Fang Rui looked completely confident, bragging that this test would be effortless because raw power was his greatest advantage. When the first group began, Fang Rui stepped forward and threw a crushing punch that nearly reached 1,400 jin, earning loud cheers from the crowd. One of his followers proudly declared that first place already belonged to Fang Rui and confidently predicted someone else would be eliminated instead. Then, everything changed. Another punch blasted the sandbag even farther, instantly silencing the entire gym. Fang Rui froze in disbelief after seeing Du produce an astonishing 1,500 jin of force, despite having a life intensity of only level 5.1. The surrounding students couldn't believe someone that powerful hadn't even ranked among last year's top 50. Du's classmate shouted excitedly, while even the teacher was left stunned. Normally, a level 5.1 martial artist could only produce around 1,000 jin of force, yet Du had reached 1,500. Not even many students in the elite Hongji class could accomplish that. Suspecting the secret lay in Du's martial skill mastery, the teacher immediately requested Chun Du's student records. The file showed that before taking his 2-year leave, Du had already reached Tier 1 with 55% mastery. Believing that number had risen dramatically, the teacher eagerly waited to see Du's true abilities during the afternoon matches. Later that day, the combat arena was prepared, and the teacher announced that students would fight as their names were called. Before long, Chun Du and Fang Rui were summoned to the stage. Some students believed Du could win after his incredible strength test, while others argued that real combat depended far more on martial skill than raw power alone. Standing across from Du, Fang Rui gripped his staff and sneered, warning him not to think he could get lucky twice. Du calmly replied that he hoped Fang Rui could stay that confident until the very end. Fang Rui immediately activated martial arts stops war, unleashing a relentless barrage of staff strikes. Du calmly parried every blow before slipping through a gap in Fang Rui's defense and landing a clean hit. Refusing to lose, Fang Rui silently vowed that he, not Chun Du, would enter the Hongji class. Roaring in anger, he poured his energy into his staff until it glowed brightly before launching his ultimate technique, a well-deserved reputation. His attacks became even faster, but Du remained perfectly composed, deflecting every strike with pinpoint precision. Fang Rui screamed for Du to die and slammed his staff into the arena with tremendous force, cracking the stage, yet Du had already dodged away. At that moment, Du realized fighting real people was completely different from battling monsters inside the crystal space. Fang Rui swung again, and their weapons collided with an explosive burst of energy. He desperately tried to defend himself, but Du's overwhelming speed shattered his guard. Seizing the opening, Du delivered a devastating blow that sent Fang Rui coughing up blood. Desperate, Fang Rui suddenly pulled out a dagger and charged straight at him. Du reacted instantly, disarming the surprise attack in one smooth motion before smashing Fang Rui onto the stage. Fang Rui lost consciousness on impact. The entire arena fell silent before exploding into shock. Nobody had expected Chen Du to win so overwhelmingly, and no one could understand how he had done it. Teacher Ling immediately called for the medical team to treat Fang Rui before instructing the next pair to prepare for their match. As Fang Rui was carried away on a stretcher, Teacher Ling asked Du to stay behind. Du respectfully bowed and apologized, explaining that he had become too nervous during the fight and failed to control his strength properly. Teacher Ling simply reassured him that injuries were normal in combat duels, advised him to be more careful next time, praised his hard work, and reminded him to stretch after returning home. Du thanked him respectfully before leaving. Watching him walk away, Teacher Ling realized Fang Rui had failed to land even a single meaningful hit. The only reasonable explanation was that Du's martial skill mastery completely surpassed his opponent's. Quietly, he instructed his AI assistant, Wang Chai, to contact the principal. Later, Du noticed he still had plenty of time before his father and younger sister came home. He walked over to his virtual combat capsule. Although he couldn't afford a real sparring partner, every student had access to a combat simulator provided by the school. By entering the capsule, users could fight virtual martial artists with similar skill levels. Du realized he was still stuck at the bronze rank because he had spent all his time battling monsters inside the crystal space instead of participating in virtual matches. As he connected to the system, he knew Fang Rui's humiliating defeat would almost certainly bring retaliation, and Fang Rui's connections might even be used to stop him from entering the Hongji class. Standing before the capsule, Du remembered that every battle fought inside the simulator was recorded on the Blue Star Youth List, a ranking created specifically for the college entrance examination. Better known throughout every ecosphere as the Genius List. Not a single student from the Hongji class had ever earned a spot on the Blue Star Youth List. Du stepped into the virtual combat capsule, knowing that if he could make the rankings, his strength alone would be enough to secure a place in the Hongji class. After logging into the combat system, he decided to warm up with a simple match since he hadn't used the simulator after obtaining the crystal space. His avatar appeared in the arena wearing a pig mask. Looking around for his opponent, he was suddenly caught off guard when a violet-haired girl wielding twin daggers dropped from above and attacked without warning. She mocked him for reacting too slowly, and Du barely managed to block her opening strike. The girl complimented his reflexes before reminding him that this wasn't a school exam. Real opponents didn't politely announce themselves before attacking. Blue energy surged around Du as he raised his sword, admitting he had learned his lesson and promising she wouldn't catch him off guard again. The two immediately exchanged blows. Du countered with pale dragon point thrust, instantly drawing the girl's attention. She recognized the technique at a glance and remarked that, although it was designed as a thrust, he had used it like an ordinary sword strike. Knocking him backward with a kick, she explained that the flowing light sword art shouldn't be confined to rigid forms. To truly master it, he had to understand the essence behind the technique instead of blindly following its movements. Her advice opened Du's eyes. Sword techniques didn't have to remain trapped within their original forms. Still, he couldn't understand how she had identified his martial art so easily. Before he had time to think further, she warned him not to lose focus. Her overwhelming pressure forced him backward, and he couldn't even recognize the martial art she was using. In the blink of an eye, she appeared above him. As Du wondered who this mysterious girl really was, she called him careless and smashed him with a decisive blow to the head. Frustrated, Du silently cursed her for fighting like a sneaky camper. The match ended with Tisk Tisk Bear losing to Little Girl selling nuclear bombs, costing him 10 victory points. As the system teleported him away, Du complained that he could have beaten her through sheer strength if she hadn't relied on an ambush. Even so, her words stayed with him. He began reflecting on the true nature of the flowing light sword art. The style consisted of 4 forms, yet he still hadn't mastered pale dragon point thrust. Since it emphasized thrusting, its characteristics closely resembled an assassin's fighting style. That realization made him understand why assassins excelled at surprise attacks while his own swordsmanship remained too straightforward. Wanting to test his theory immediately, Du entered another match. This time, his opponent was a towering man wielding an enormous iron ball and chain. After facing a stealthy assassin, he was now matched against someone whose weapon directly countered his own, making Du seriously question the matchmaking system. Without hesitation, he charged as energy flared around his body, confident that his superior martial skill mastery would give him the edge. He opened with painting the ground as a prison, then instantly chained into golden drums ringing to the heavens. The giant scoffed, insisting that swords weren't meant to be used like that, and warned Du not to become arrogant just because his mastery was slightly higher. Swinging the massive iron ball toward him, he expected to crush the fight in one blow. Instead, Du calmly answered with breeze in the forest, knocking the heavy weapon into the ground. In the next instant, he had already slipped behind his stunned opponent. The giant couldn't believe it. Du had been standing directly in front of him just moments earlier. Before he could react, Du unleashed Pale Dragon Point Thrust, ending the battle instantly. The system announced Tisk Tisk Bear's victory over Wang Dui and awarded him another 10 victory points. Du smiled with satisfaction. It was the first time he had successfully brought out the true power of Pale Dragon Point Thrust. As he reflected on the battle, he began to understand why the sword was called the weapon of skill. Skill wasn't simply about dexterity. It was about adaptability. A sword could be hard or soft, visible or hidden. It could strike like thunder or flow as gently as water. Du finally realized that Pale Dragon Point Thrust, the final form of the flowing light sword art, existed to teach the sword's true nature. A sword could fight openly, but it could also kill from the shadows. It had no fixed form. Just then, a system notification appeared, announcing that his flowing light sword art had advanced from Tier 1 with 89% mastery to Tier 1 with 90% mastery. Seeing how quickly real combat improved his understanding, Du eagerly searched for more opponents. Battle after battle, the system continued, reporting steady increases in his mastery. Several hours later, hunger finally caught up with him. At that exact moment, his smart wristband chimed with a new notification, congratulating him for entering the top 100,000 of the Blue Star Youth list. Du froze in surprise and immediately requested the full rankings. The system displayed them at once. He ranked 6,219th on the Blue Star Youth list, 654th on the 7th Biosphere Youth list, 55th on the Giant Bear Realm Youth list, 7th on the Purple Cloud District Youth list, and 1st on the Liang City Youth list. Du couldn't hide his excitement. Mastering Pale Dragon Point Thrust had made him the #1 young martial artist in all of Liang City, and with those results, he knew his place in the Hongji class was finally guaranteed. The following day, Liang City #1 High School felt unusually quiet. While Du was walking across campus with his backpack, someone suddenly called out to him. It was Feng Liu, the dean of students and Feng Rui's second uncle. Feng Liu immediately scolded Du for lacking manners and demanded to know why he hadn't greeted a teacher. Although Du reluctantly greeted him, he quietly wondered who this man was and what the armband on his arm represented. Feng Liu claimed he was inspecting students' appearance before the new semester and aggressively questioned Du about his clothing. Du calmly pointed out that he was simply wearing the school uniform, making the surrounding students struggle to hold back their laughter. Some whispered that Du was finished because Feng Rui still hadn't been discharged from the hospital, meaning his second uncle was obviously here for revenge. Others spread rumors that Du had only defeated Feng Rui by taking banned drugs and deserved whatever happened next. Still, a few students quietly admitted that Du's strength was genuinely terrifying. Furious, Feng Liu swung his disciplinary stick at him, but Du casually dodged the strike. Feng Liu immediately accused him of refusing to cooperate, while Du calmly questioned the accusation and stated that he had violated none of the school's rules. Furious that a student dared to argue with him, Feng Liu swung his disciplinary stick again, but Du effortlessly caught it. Feng Liu immediately threatened to report him to the principal and have him expelled for defying school discipline and disrespecting a teacher. Before he could continue, a voice suddenly asked who had been looking for him. Two men walked over. Liang Muyang, the principal of Liang City #1 High School, and Wang Anwan, the mayor of Liang City. Feng Liu hurried over, eager to accuse Du, but Principal Lai silenced him with a simple wave. Instead, he walked straight to Du and asked if he was Chen Du. After Du confirmed his identity, the principal explained that they had come specifically to meet him before introducing Mayor Wang. Du politely greeted them and asked why they were looking for him. Laughing, the mayor revealed that Du had ranked first on the Liang City Youth list and entered the top 100,000 of the Blue Star Youth list, so he wanted to meet the young man who had accomplished such an incredible feat. The surrounding students were left speechless. Even Feng Liu hadn't expected Du to break into the Blue Star Youth list's top 100,000. The crowd instantly realized that someone with those achievements had never needed drugs to defeat Feng Rui, and his place in the Hongji class was now all but guaranteed. The mayor and principal invited Du to the meeting room, saying they had something important to discuss before he officially transferred into the Hongji class. Principal Lai also mentioned that Teacher Ling had personally requested Du's immediate transfer. Inside the meeting room, Liu Bo and Moray greeted the mayor and principal. Liu Bo ranked second on the Liang City Youth list, while Moray belonged to Hongji class #1. Since the three students had never met before, they simply exchanged polite bows. The mayor then explained that the Purple Cloud District was organizing a tournament involving the 100 cities under its jurisdiction. Every city would send its top 3 high school students based on their martial arts rankings as of 6 o'clock the previous evening, accompanied by a martial artist above level 15. The event would be held at High City #1 High School as a 3-day 100 cities hegemony tournament. The top 10 competitors would receive generous rewards, beginning with 100,000 in prize money, along with at least 10 bonus points on the college entrance exam. The mayor asked whether they were willing to participate. Murray questioned why the competition wasn't simply being held through virtual combat. The mayor explained that the district leaders had unanimously decided real combat was a far better test. Martial artists would supervise the event to ensure everyone's safety, while special combat suits would equalize every participant's life intensity. Quietly calculating his chances, Du realized his current martial skill mastery already ranked among the district's top 20. At the pace he was improving, breaking into the top 3 seemed completely achievable. The mayor reminded them not to pressure themselves too much, since even participating would allow them to measure themselves against the strongest students from other cities. Du accepted immediately, and Lubo and Moray quickly agreed as well. Pleased with their confidence, the mayor praised their youthful spirit before telling them to return to class while they waited for the departure schedule. As Du walked away, he silently made himself a promise. He had to finish among the tournament's top 3. Winning enough prize money would finally free his parents from working themselves to exhaustion every day. No matter what stood in his way, he intended to reach the top. Arriving at his new classroom, Du noticed that, unlike ordinary classes, none of the desks in the Hongji class had assigned names. He casually picked an empty seat, only for someone to immediately order him to get lost and demand to know what gave him the right to sit there. The speaker was Pang Hu, the student ranked 10th in the Hongji class. Du calmly stood up and couldn't help wondering why someone was still using such outdated school bully tactics. Before the confrontation escalated, Moray stepped between them and explained that Du had just transferred in and didn't know the class rules. Du was surprised because he hadn't even sensed Moray approaching, instantly realizing Moray's life intensity was at least 2 levels higher than his own. Pang Hu reluctantly backed off, saying that for Moray's sake he would let Du go this time. Moray then welcomed Du and explained that every seat in the Hongji class represented a student's strength ranking. Once every month, everyone fought real battles to determine their positions, and the bottom 10 students had to stand through every class for the entire following month. Du was surprised by how intense the competition was. Moray added that this month's rankings had already been finalized, so if Du wanted a numbered seat, he would have to challenge someone. Du asked whether the rankings affected anything besides having a place to sit, since that would determine how much strength he needed to reveal. Moray explained that higher-ranked students received better monthly resource subsidies. Hearing that, Du immediately decided the challenge was worth it. If resources were on the line, he intended to claim the highest rank possible. A few minutes later, Teacher Ling entered and led everyone into the combat room. Once the class had gathered, he explained that every challenger could issue up to 3 challenges, and their final seat number would be determined by their combat performance. Du immediately raised his hand and announced that he wanted to challenge the student ranked 10th. Teacher Ling froze in surprise, while the rest of the class stared at the newcomer in disbelief. Du looked quiet and harmless, yet on his very first day, he had targeted the top 10. Teacher Ling knew Du possessed exceptional martial skill mastery, but his life intensity was still far below the other Hongji students. By all logic, he shouldn't have been qualified to challenge the top 10 at all. Du, however, only cared about one thing. The monthly subsidy for 10th place was 50% greater than the reward for 11th. That alone made the challenge worthwhile. Peng Hu burst into laughter, mocking Du for acting so boldly on his first day and warning him not to cry after getting beaten. Du simply asked whether Peng Hu was really the student ranked 10th. Peng Hu confirmed it and coldly told Du to consider himself unlucky. Teacher Ling instructed Peng Hu to put on his protective gear and enter the arena. He had always believed Du was a calm and sensible student, so he hadn't expected him to be so eager to challenge the top 10. Still, Ling decided that letting Du experience a setback might be good for his growth. Carrying his massive warhammer, Peng Hu stepped into the arena as Teacher Ling officially announced the start of the match. Peng Hu arrogantly told Du to prepare himself, claiming he would soon be begging for mercy. Blue energy surged around Du as he calmly replied that they would find out soon enough. Peng Hu immediately swung his enormous hammer, mocking Du for reacting too slowly. The surrounding students quickly noticed the difference in speed. Du's life intensity was a full level lower than Peng Hu's, convincing almost everyone that the outcome had already been decided. Watching closely, Teacher Ling suddenly noticed that Du's life intensity had risen to level 5.2. It had only been level 5.1 the day before. Even he couldn't understand how Du had improved so quickly. Believing victory was already his, Peng Hu brought his hammer crashing down with all his strength. Then his confident expression froze. Du had somehow appeared directly in front of him with a faint smile. Seizing the opening, Du launched a single counterattack that blasted Peng Hu through the air. He crashed onto the ground in complete defeat. Just as Du prepared to follow up with another strike, Teacher Ling stepped in and caught his wrist. Recognizing the technique immediately, he asked if Du had just used Pale Dragon Point Thrust. He was shocked, because that attack had clearly reached Tier 1 Perfect. Du simply replied that he had been lucky enough to achieve a breakthrough the previous night. Teacher Ling found it almost impossible to believe someone could improve from 90% mastery to perfection overnight, while Du merely looked back at him in confusion. Ling officially declared Chen Du the winner. The entire class fell silent in disbelief. Du had defeated an opponent whose life intensity was a full level higher with a single strike. Even Moray hadn't expected the quiet transfer student to be such a late-blooming genius. Teacher Ling announced that Du had officially claimed seat number 10 and asked whether he wished to challenge someone ranked even higher. Du politely declined. Since the resource subsidy didn't increase by much beyond 10th place, conserving his strength was the wiser decision. Moray immediately walked over and asked to add Du on WeChat, and the rest of the class quickly followed, forcing Du to reluctantly accept everyone's requests. Meanwhile, Penghu grabbed Du's leg and sincerely begged for forgiveness, making Du realize the guy certainly knew when to lower his head. Teacher Ling silently watched everything before telling Du to meet him in the office after school. Later, they arrived at the principal's office, where Teacher Ling immediately asked whether Mount Everest Martial Arts University and Mount Thai Martial Arts University still had any early special admission slots available. Inviting them to sit down, the principal asked why Ling was suddenly interested. Ling explained that he wanted Chen Du to pursue early admission. The principal reminded him that both schools ranked among the nation's top 8 martial arts universities and required applicants to possess Tier 1 perfect martial skill mastery. Although Du was only 1% away, crossing that final step was notoriously difficult. Unconvinced, Teacher Ling insisted that Du demonstrate his abilities using the testing instrument in the office. Sighing, the principal pointed toward the machine and explained that it could accurately measure techniques up to Tier 1 high stage, making it ideal for evaluating students. Ling urged Du to recreate the exact strike he had used against Penghu. Du stepped forward, focused his mind, drew his sword, and unleashed pale dragon point thrust. The testing dummy exploded into countless pieces. Both the principal and Teacher Ling stared in stunned silence. Just yesterday afternoon, Du's martial skill had still been at Tier 1 high stage, yet overnight he had broken through to Tier 1 perfect. Embarrassed, Du apologized for destroying the equipment. Teacher Ling, however, couldn't hide his excitement. He declared Du an extraordinary combat genius blessed with an incredibly rare instinct for battle. Throughout his entire teaching career, he had never seen a student with such mature judgment and razor-sharp combat intuition. It was almost as if Du had survived countless life-and-death battles. Hearing that, Du couldn't help shuddering at how frighteningly accurate his teacher's instincts were. The principal completely agreed. He immediately classified Du as a top-priority martial arts prodigy, granting him the same cultivation resources as the student holding seat number 1. He also promised to personally handle Du's early admission application, provided Du could finish among the top 3 in the upcoming 100 Cities Hegemony tournament. If he accomplished that, his admission would be guaranteed. Du then raised his hand and asked what early special admission actually meant. Teacher Ling explained that entering one of the nation's top 8 universities through the normal college entrance exam required reaching at least life intensity level 6.5. Given Du's current level, achieving that before the exam would be extremely difficult. The early admission route, however, only required Tier 1 perfect martial skill mastery 1 month before the entrance examination. The principal added that professors from Mount Everest Martial Arts University and Mount Thai Martial Arts University would visit the school immediately after the tournament to personally evaluate Du. Du then asked whether passing early admission for those universities would still allow him to take the college entrance exam and apply elsewhere. Curious, Teacher Ling asked if he already had another school in mind. Without hesitation, Du answered that he wanted to attend Mount Huang Martial Arts University. After all, the cultivation resources offered by all 8 elite universities were nearly identical. His answer surprised Teacher Ling. 6 years earlier, Cloud Thunder District in Lake West City had suffered a surprise invasion by the giant race. Although the city's defense forces and reinforcements from neighboring regions arrived in time, the shortage of manpower still resulted in hundreds of thousands of deaths. More than anything, Du simply wanted his family to live peacefully and safely. If Liang City ever faced a similar disaster, he wanted to be close enough to return immediately and protect them. Teacher Ling was deeply moved. In his experience, only people who had personally suffered the destruction of their families usually thought that way. Yet despite still having a complete family, Du already possessed that level of responsibility. Ling became convinced that this young man was destined to shoulder great burdens in the future. Finally, Du asked whether he could treat Mount Everest and Mount Thai Martial Arts Universities as backup options in case he failed to enter Mount Huang Martial Arts University. The principal shook his head and explained that once Du accepted early admission, he would have to sign a binding contract with that university, making it impossible to apply elsewhere afterward. Teacher Ling added that if Du performed well in next month's 100 Cities Hegemony tournament, admission to either university would be almost guaranteed. Through the early special admission route, his required college entrance exam score would also be reduced by another 100 points. Without it, Du would have to raise his life intensity to level 6.5, while the maximum score reduction available through the normal route was only 30 points. Based on years of experience, Teacher Ling strongly advised him not to gamble with his future. Du thanked both of them and said he would think carefully before making a decision. Leaving the school, he kept weighing the pros and cons. The early admission assessment was still more than a month away and would take place immediately after the 100 Cities Hegemony tournament. Until then, he decided to live inside the school's exclusive martial arts training room so he could devote all of his time to getting stronger. He also planned to find medicine capable of accelerating the growth of his life intensity, and he was confident the Technology Martial Palace would have exactly what he needed. Across the entire high martial civilization, 3 supreme organizations safeguarded humanity's future. The Extreme Martial Palace, which fought against alien civilizations, the Technology Martial Palace, which focused on advancing humanity's overall strength, and the Martial Artist Alliance, which maintained public order. Du also remembered that Durags, the founder of the Technology Martial Palace, was regarded as the second strongest person in human civilization. Although he wasn't as powerful as Yan's, no one could ignore the immense contributions he had made to humanity's progress. Arriving at the Technology Martial Palace, Du requested 3 boxes of Thunder Chi blood pills. The receptionist was surprised and explained that the medicine couldn't be purchased directly. Every buyer first had to pass an endurance test, so she led him to the testing room. Du already knew why the requirement existed. The Thunder Chi blood pill was one of the strongest medicines available before officially becoming a martial artist, but its medicinal power transformed into violent lightning that surged through the user's meridians. Anyone who failed to maintain complete concentration for 30 minutes risked losing control of the energy and even their life. Once inside, the receptionist asked if he was ready before placing his hand on the testing device. Du nodded, and she activated the machine. As the test continued, her expression gradually shifted from curiosity to complete disbelief. After Du left, she even reported that the endurance testing machine for the Thunder Chi blood pills must have malfunctioned. Returning to his private training room, Du carefully read the instructions. One treatment cycle lasted 10 consecutive days, with a maximum dosage of 3 pills taken simultaneously. Swallowing all 3 at once produced 5 times the pain of a single pill for a full 30 minutes. On top of that, after 3 to 5 treatment cycles, the body would gradually develop resistance, reducing the medicine's effectiveness. Du recalled that the store's endurance test had only simulated half the pain of a single pill, something he had considered laughably easy. Holding 3 pills in his hand, he estimated they would inflict roughly 10 times the pain he had just experienced. Even so, he swallowed them all without hesitation. Instantly, violent currents of electricity exploded through every part of his body, and excruciating pain flooded his meridians. Yet Du simply smiled and asked if that was really the best the pills could do. Moments later, he let out a relieved breath as the system announced that his life intensity had increased from level 5.2 to level 5.3. Delighted by the progress, Du realized he had taken another step toward level 6.5. If he could continue improving at this pace, he might not need the early admission route at all. Unfortunately, his current supply of medicine would only last 10 days instead of the full month he had hoped for. Judging from the remaining funds on his card, he could only afford to maintain this training method for another 55 days. That meant he absolutely had to finish in at least the top 2 of the 100 Cities Hegemony tournament if he wanted enough prize money to continue growing stronger. The violent side effects of taking the Thunder Chi blood pills for the first time left his body temporarily unable to move, so instead of forcing himself to continue training physically, Du entered the crystal space to focus on strengthening his mental power. After recovering, he spent the entire night slaughtering green firefly giants inside the mysterious world. Although he failed to wipe them all out, his mental power still increased significantly. Thinking back on the battle, Du suddenly remembered that the Hongji-class resource subsidy had finally been distributed, instantly lifting his mood as he looked forward to the day's lessons. Before long, Yadi, an instructor from the Martial Artist Alliance responsible for the Hongji class, greeted everyone and announced that today's lesson would cover an advanced combat technique known as mental power attachment. This special course was reserved exclusively for Hongji students and could only be practiced by those who had reached Tier 2 mental power. Du also noticed that Yadi's life intensity exceeded level 15. She explained that while mastering higher-level martial arts naturally strengthened the body, properly controlling mental power allowed martial artists to achieve twice the result with half the effort. Normally, a person's physical strength was scattered throughout the entire body, but mental power attachment gathered that dispersed power into a single point, dramatically increasing explosive force. In Yadi's words, the technique meant ensuring every strand of strength in the body fulfilled its intended purpose. Looking around, Du noticed none of his classmates seemed surprised, making him realize they had probably already learned and mastered the technique. Yadi continued by explaining that mental power below Tier 10 could only mobilize a limited amount of physical strength, so she didn't recommend investing too much time studying it. Anyone hoping for outstanding college entrance exam results should still focus primarily on raising their life intensity. She then announced that she would evaluate everyone's mental power and instructed the class to stand. Taking out a short flute, she explained that she would perform the Song of Exhaustion to accurately measure each student's mental power, hoping this semester's results would surpass those of the last. Turning toward Du, she kindly told him he could skip the test because the results wouldn't affect his college entrance exam score. Du immediately understood what she meant. She assumed he only possessed Tier 1 mental power and expected him to collapse the moment the flute began playing, so she was trying to spare him the embarrassment. Even so, Du firmly stated that he would participate. Yadi accepted his decision and prepared to begin the test. Yadi let out a quiet sigh. Young people were always so competitive, yet mental power wasn't something that could be improved overnight. Even the other Hongji students were merely clumsy birds that had started flying earlier than everyone else. Since Teacher Ling valued Du so highly, she decided that if he failed the test, she would stay behind and personally guide him. Raising her flute, she instructed the class to concentrate and resist with everything they had. The song of exhaustion would drain both their bodies and minds. As the students answered in unison, Yadi began to play. Du watched curiously as, within seconds, a strange creature gradually materialized before him. Startled, he narrowly dodged its first charge before blocking a powerful kick. He immediately recognized the technique as mental style, physical hypnosis. Despite the overwhelming pressure, he remained completely calm. Yadi was surprised that Du endured the technique without even frowning. The initial test was almost effortless for him, making her realize his mental power far exceeded her expectations. Curious to discover his limits, she immediately increased the intensity by 1 level. The pressure rose sharply, and several students instantly collapsed from exhaustion. Just as Yadi had expected, most of the class could no longer endure it. Turning toward Du, she was surprised to find him still standing. The rest of the students stared at him in disbelief. Everyone knew his family was too poor to afford expensive mental power resources, yet he possessed extraordinary talent in both martial arts and mental power. Peng Hu had already given up, but instead of feeling embarrassed, he was relieved. The stronger Du became, the more justified his own defeat looked. The rest of the class was equally shocked. Yadi quickly realized that if Du had been born into a wealthier family, he could easily have competed for one of the nation's 3 top-tier martial arts universities. Even Moray had collapsed at level 6, yet Du remained standing at level 7. Without hesitation, Yadi increased the test to level 8. Du immediately sensed the pressure transform. A gigantic figure radiating a terrifying aura appeared before him and launched a relentless assault. Every blow felt heavier than the last. His breathing became ragged as the crushing force dragged his body toward the ground, yet he stubbornly refused to fall. Watching him struggle on, Yadi realized the trial was exhausting both his body and his mind at the same time. She was amazed that Du's mental power had actually surpassed his life intensity, something she considered almost miraculous. Combined with his incredible martial talent, he could one day develop resistance to mental attacks while overwhelming his enemies with raw physical strength. In her eyes, Du was the ideal warrior for fighting the Big Eye civilization. Later, inside the principal's office, everyone was astonished after learning that Du possessed exceptional talent in both martial arts and mental power. Yadi confirmed that she had personally verified both abilities during class. Teacher Ling added that after speaking with Du, he firmly believed the boy had the potential to become a level 20 martial artist, a soaring martial artist. The principal nodded, explaining that soaring martial artists were extraordinarily rare. Sending someone with Du's potential to one of the 8 prestigious universities would actually be a waste. Instead, he believed Du should aim for one of the 3 top-tier martial arts universities, institutions that accepted only students capable of becoming soaring martial artists. He informed Teacher Ling that Black Dragon Martial Arts University, one of those elite schools, would hold its freshman selection in Cyber City immediately after the 100 Cities Hegemony Tournament, and instructed Ling to persuade Du to participate. When Du arrived at the office, Teacher Ling asked whether he knew anything about Black Dragon Martial Arts University. Du admitted he only knew it was one of the 3 top-tier schools. Ling explained that unlike ordinary universities, these institutions ignored the standard college entrance exam and personally selected geniuses with the potential to break through and become soaring martial artists, individuals who eventually reached a transcendent realm beyond ordinary martial artists. To qualify for that path, candidates generally needed life intensity level 9.9 and Tier 1 mid-stage martial skill mastery. Yet even among martial artists, only about half ever reached Tier 1 mid-stage or higher. Although Qi blood medicine could rapidly increase life intensity, most families simply couldn't afford it. Many people couldn't even buy ordinary Qi blood milk, and by the time they finally earned enough money, they had already missed the best years for cultivation. After thinking it over, Du decided to compete for Black Dragon Martial Arts University's selection. Deep down, however, he couldn't bear the thought of leaving his family, knowing that such a choice might separate them forever. Teacher Ling encouraged him by reminding him that, with his current talent, early admission into one of the 8 prestigious universities was already virtually guaranteed. He advised Du to treat those schools as a safety net, while aiming even higher for Black Dragon Martial Arts University and an even greater future. For now, however, the 100 Cities Hegemony Tournament was only 1 month away, so that competition had to remain their highest priority. The following morning, Du shared breakfast with his family. His younger sister immediately noticed that his entire presence had changed. His physique looked stronger, and there was now an indescribable aura around him that made him seem far more mysterious than before. During the meal, Du told his parents and sister that he planned to start living at school that very day, so he could devote himself completely to training for the upcoming tournament. His mother immediately worried about his health, reminding him not to push himself too hard. His sister wondered whether the school could even arrange a dormitory, since student housing was usually assigned before the semester began. Du reassured them with a smile, explaining that the school had invested significant resources into supporting him and preventing his previous health problems from returning. Every Hongji class student, he said, was given a private martial arts room with a dedicated resting area, allowing them to train and sleep in the same place. Hearing that, his father fully supported the decision. He encouraged Du to keep moving forward with confidence and reminded him to contact the family whenever he needed anything. Whatever happened, he wanted his son to continue chasing his dreams without hesitation. After breakfast, Du told his family he was heading back to school. They wished him luck, reminded him to take care of himself, and encouraged him to work hard and bring home first place. Once he arrived, the school provided him with a huge package of cultivation resources: 90 bags of chi blood milk, 30 chi blood pills, and 4 packs of perfect chi blood powder, all waiting inside his private martial arts room. After estimating their value at over 5,000 credits, Du couldn't help realizing that martial arts truly was a path built on wealth. Tapping the control panel with the back of his hand, he waited for the door to open before locking himself inside. Without wasting a second, he instructed Little Bear to raise the room's gravity to 5 times normal. The system complied instantly, and the overwhelming pressure felt as though 15 full-grown elephants were crushing down on his body. Instead of being intimidated, Du smiled, finding the challenge exciting. The 4th round of training began as a combat robot stepped forward. The machine threw a heavy punch, and Du blocked it with his sword. Under 5 times gravity, however, even the slightest mistake in applying force could tear muscles or fracture bones, making it impossible to trade blows directly. Realizing that enduring the pressure head-on wasn't an option, Du began redirecting the robot's attacks instead. The machine immediately analyzed his performance, reporting an evasion efficiency of 87%, while warning that his energy consumption remained excessively high and advising him to eliminate unnecessary movements. It then launched synchronized attacks at both his upper and lower body, cutting off every normal escape route. Since dodging was no longer possible, Du decided to make the robot suffer the same crushing gravity. He leaped into the air and delivered a powerful slash that forced the machine down onto one knee. Suddenly, the robot activated its emergency mode. Du stared in disbelief as its body stretched unnaturally to continue attacking, blatantly cheating before tackling him to the ground. Left with no choice, he immediately ordered Little Bear to deactivate the gravity field. Breathing heavily, Du realized he had already reached his physical limit. Deciding to recover, he relaxed his body and activated the Void Immortal Visualization method to cultivate his mental power instead. As his consciousness drifted into another world, a dark figure with glowing crimson eyes silently appeared before him. But Du completely ignored it and focused only on accumulating mental power experience. Before long, his mental power increased by another 0.3. After completing his cultivation, Du tried to stand up, only to realize one of his legs had gone completely numb. Mentally exhausted and physically drained, he swallowed a recovery pill, collapsed onto the floor, and decided to sleep where he was. The moment he closed his eyes, his consciousness entered the crystal space once again to continue refining his martial arts. The ground shook violently as the green firefly giants reappeared. Last time, he had failed because he didn't fully understand their abilities, but this battle would be different. Wrapped in a blue aura, Du rested his sword across his shoulder and calmly prepared for combat. He had finally discovered that the green patches covering the giants' bodies weren't strange markings at all. They were the source of their healing power. Charging forward, he struck one directly on its glowing weak point. Apart from their regeneration, the green firefly giants possessed nothing except absurdly large health pools. As long as he destroyed the healing patches first, defeating them became dramatically easier. Du also noticed that his time training under extreme gravity had significantly improved his control over his body in normal conditions. He effortlessly avoided a giant's attack before finding an opening and bringing his sword down with tremendous force, cutting one giant down. Standing victorious while the remaining monsters surrounded him, Du couldn't help enjoying the lightness of moving without enhanced gravity, making him even more eager to continue that training method. After waking up, he became completely convinced that gravity training would help him reach the top 3 in the upcoming 100 Cities Hegemony tournament at High City. Before long, the long-awaited tournament finally arrived. Du followed Teacher Ling to an extravagant hotel, the most luxurious place he had ever visited. As Ling walked ahead, Du noticed a heated argument unfolding at the reception desk. A furious man demanded to know why he wasn't being allowed to check in despite arriving on time. The man was Wu Zong, a representative from Lu City. Slamming his hand onto the counter, he demanded an explanation while the frightened receptionist trembled under the pressure. Du watched as Wu Zong even reached for his sword and couldn't help wondering whether he actually intended to attack someone inside the hotel. Sensing the powerful sword intent radiating from him, Du immediately judged that Wu Zong's martial skill mastery was at least on par with his own. Even Liu Bo and Moray were shocked by that assessment. At that moment, a girl named Zhou Xiao, one of High City's competitors, calmly stepped in and ordered someone to resolve the situation. She allowed Wu Zong to register, but declared that his absent teammates would automatically be treated as having forfeited. The crowd instantly erupted with excitement at her appearance. Many spectators whispered that the famous sea princess was even more beautiful in person than in photographs. Curious, Du asked who she was. Moray immediately told him to give up if he had any interest in her, explaining that Zhou Xiao was the daughter of the principal of High City No. 1 High School. Whether it was family, background, wealth, reputation, or personal talent, she stood at the very top in every category and was widely regarded as a true, favored daughter of heaven. In Moray's opinion, Du simply had no chance. However, Du suddenly realized he had seen her somewhere before. A moment later, it finally clicked. She was the mysterious opponent who had ambushed him during virtual combat. The player known as Little Girl Selling Nuclear Bombs. He had always assumed her appearance was randomly generated by the system, yet she looked exactly the same in real life, and she was every bit as beautiful as her avatar. Du never expected to meet one of his online opponents face-to-face. Fortunately, she had no way of recognizing him. Remembering that her martial skill mastery had already reached Tier 1 Perfect back then, one step ahead of his own, Du became even more convinced that entering the 100 Cities Hegemony Tournament had been the right choice. Later, everyone gathered inside room 301, where Teacher Ling announced that the organizers had made a major change to this year's rules. Unlike previous tournaments, an additional badge-snatching round would be held before the elimination stage. Curious, Du asked for the details. Ling explained that the 100 Cities Hegemony Tournament would last 3 days and consist of 3 separate rounds. The opening round would begin the next day inside a forest arena. Within a strict 13-hour time limit, every team had to locate 2 designated badges marked with the characters High and Martial. After obtaining them, the competitors had to reach the finish line, and the number of participants advancing to the next stage would depend entirely on how many members of each team successfully arrived before time expired. Du asked how many badges were hidden throughout the arena, and Teacher Ling revealed there were exactly 50 High badges and 50 Martial badges. That meant only 50 teams could qualify, eliminating at least half of the competitors on the very first day. The second stage would immediately become a brutal one-on-one elimination tournament with almost no time to recover. The remaining 150 contestants would battle through an entire day until only the strongest 10 advanced to the final round. Although the matchups were random, teammates would never be paired against each other, making Moray and Liu Bo quietly breathe a sigh of relief that they wouldn't have to fight someone as terrifying as Du. Teacher Ling continued by explaining that the third stage was known as the Top 10 Battle. Simply reaching it was already a tremendous achievement because every finalist would receive cash prizes and bonus points on the college entrance exam. However, finishing in the top 3 would depend heavily on each competitor's condition after enduring 3 straight days of combat, little rest, and countless injuries. In the end, the champion might not be the strongest in a single duel, but they would undoubtedly possess the greatest overall strength. Before dismissing them, Teacher Ling emphasized one final rule. Killing was absolutely forbidden, both inside and outside the tournament. Humanity's true enemies were the alien civilizations, so no martial artist should ever point their weapon at another human. The 3 students fell silent, as Ling explained that everyone would wear special combat suits to equalize their life intensity, while the team leaders would secretly enter the arena to protect them. However, if he was ever forced to intervene, they would be eliminated immediately. Smiling, he reminded them that tomorrow everything would depend on their own abilities, and encouraged them to believe in themselves because they were the best. Du, Moray, and Liu Bo answered confidently in unison. The next morning, the 100 Cities Hegemony Tournament officially began at High City No. 1 High School. After entering the venue, Du realized they were about to be transported into an enormous forest. Zhou Chung, the principal of High City No. 1 High School and one of the tournament organizers, welcomed all the participants before pointing toward a gigantic gate. Beyond it lay an entire forest contained inside a dimensional rift known as a spirit realm, a mysterious space created hundreds of years ago when the 9 great planets collided. This particular realm was the lowest difficulty spirit realm, called Forest Wolfwoods. Du was surprised because spirit realms were dangerous worlds inhabited entirely by monsters with no human civilization. Principal Zhou reassured everyone that this realm had been fully stabilized and personally certified as safe by Ryan, the world's 3rd strongest martial artist and founder of the Martial Artist Alliance. Even so, he warned the students that the trial still carried a genuine risk of death and reminded them to prioritize their own safety above all else. Turning toward Wu Zong, he warned him not to act alone simply because his teammates were absent, explaining that suitable teammates would be assigned based on his strength. Wu Zong simply clicked his tongue in annoyance, leaving everyone wondering why he seemed irritated with absolutely everyone he met. After completing the iris verification process, Principal Zhou ordered the competitors to prepare for entry. The massive gate slowly opened, and everyone stepped inside. He explained that the true location of every spirit realm was an absolute secret. The teleportation array connected to Forest Wolf Woods had been created by their predecessors as an emergency escape route, allowing anyone trapped inside to return safely if the dimensional rift ever closed. A system announcement then instructed every team to stand inside the teleportation array. Each squad would be sent to a random location within Forest Wolf Woods. Although the map displayed 300 possible badge locations, only 100 actually contained badges, while the remaining 200 were nothing more than decoys. As the magic array lit up, pillars of light engulfed every participant. When the blinding light faded, Du found himself standing among dense trees inside the spirit realm. Murray checked the digital map and asked which location they should investigate first. Looking at his own display, Du noticed a marker very close to their starting position and suggested they check it to determine whether it contained a real badge or simply another fake marker. Everyone agreed. Before long, they arrived at a stone pillar. To test it, they threw a rock at the display. The screen immediately lit up and revealed the character Hai. Du pressed the panel and successfully claimed their first badge. Smiling, he admitted that he had expected every nearby marker to be a decoy, so finding a genuine badge right away was an unexpected stroke of luck. Lubo happily suggested choosing their next destination. Suddenly, Du sensed danger and shouted a warning. 2 arrows shot through the air and embedded themselves in the ground directly in front of the team. Another squad had arrived far sooner than expected. The newcomers blocked their path and coldly demanded that the Liang City team hand over their badge if they didn't want to be eliminated. Du knew that Kun City was far more developed than Liang City, and in general, students from larger cities were considerably stronger. Meanwhile, inside the spectator auditorium of High City No. 1 High School, the audience noticed that some teams had already encountered one another. Many were surprised that clashes had started less than 10 minutes after the tournament began, concluding that both teams must have spawned close together and chosen the same destination. Watching from the stands, Cao Yan, the principal of Kun City, laughed and jokingly offered to pay for his old friend's plane tickets back to Liang City after the inevitable defeat. Principal Lai could only sigh at his team's terrible luck for running into Kun City's representatives in the very first round. Back inside the spirit realm, Du smiled calmly and asked whether they truly believed they could eliminate his entire team by themselves. The opposing captain impatiently told him to stop wasting time and hand over the badge. Du fired back by asking if he honestly believed students from big cities were automatically stronger than those from smaller ones. Tightening his grip on his spear, the young man declared that Du's team would become the tournament's very first victims. Introducing himself as Li Wan, he proudly proclaimed that he would one day become Kun City's Spear King before charging straight at Du. Without the slightest hesitation, Moray and Lubo stepped forward together, daring him to come and prove it. Du stepped in front of his teammates and calmly told them to leave everything to him. Energy erupted around our protagonist as he declared he would face all 3 opponents alone before activating Comet Spear Art, third stance, boiling the loot and burning the crane. The entire city team attacked together, but Yen's taunt that Du knew nothing of heaven and earth was immediately proven wrong. Du blocked all 3 strikes with a single sword without giving up even one step. Shocked, Yen realized that despite all of them sharing level 5 life intensity, Du's strength was clearly on another level. During the clash, Du judged that Li Wan had already reached the peak of Tier 1 high stage, while the other 2 fighters were far weaker. He activated mental power attachment, tightened his grip, and unleashed flowing light sword art, first stance, painting the ground as a prison. A massive blue wave blasted forward, instantly knocking Yuan's 2 teammates unconscious while Yuan barely remained standing. Feeling as though Du's sword outweighed his own spear, he broke into a cold sweat, unable to imagine the true extent of Du's power. Wanting to eliminate the strongest enemy first, Du switched to flowing light sword art, second stance, golden drums. But just before the attack landed, Linbei appeared and stopped the sword with a single finger. Praising the incredible force behind the strike, he told the still defiant Yuan that the fight was already over. Since Du's previous attack had already sliced through his teammates' clothes, its power had reached the level of someone with level 7 life intensity. Even surviving the first attack would only have delayed defeat, because the second strike would have been fatal. Linbei immediately called for his team to withdraw, privately acknowledging that Du's talent had already surpassed Liyu's and would make him a terrifying figure in the future. Hidden behind a tree, Ling watched the entire battle with a grin. Before leaving, Linbei said goodbye to Ling Yun and looked forward to seeing his students in the finals. Yuan then asked for Du's name, admitting he rarely respected anyone, but Du had earned that honor. Du confidently answered that the champion's name would be Chandu. Watching the incredible turnaround, Principal Li laughed, thanked Xiaoyan for practically handing them the victory, and even mocked Cao by offering to book his flight home that very night. Mayor Q remarked that 4 competitors should have reached Tier 1 perfect martial arts this year, including the student from Liang City, but Zhou corrected him, saying there were only 3. At the same time, spectators noticed the Liang City team already had 2 badges, and wondered why they were heading toward the exit after collecting only 1 more, since leaving now meant instant elimination. Inside Forest Wolf Woods, Moret questioned whether Du really intended to hunt Wang. Du explained that collecting 2 badges would be easy for him, but his real objective was winning the championship. Prestige meant everything to Wuzong, yet Du only cared about the 1 million prize money because he desperately needed it to survive. After leaving Bo and Moret speechless, he explained his strategy. Zhou Xiagu and Ku Zhongtian from High City were too powerful to challenge directly, so ambushing Wang offered their best chance. Although Bo worried this would only benefit High City's team, Du pointed out that if Wang survived, he might not even reach the top 3. Since teammates couldn't face each other in round 2, and High City hosted the tournament, he believed the organizers would deliberately match him against Wang, letting both High City fighters advance untouched. Whoever survived that battle would then be forced to fight both High City competitors back-to-back in round 3, and no one could realistically defeat 3 Tier 1 perfect martial artists within 2 days. Moret finally understood why Wang had to be eliminated immediately, while Bo admitted the entire tournament felt manipulated behind the scenes. Du openly warned that his plan was risky because he couldn't guarantee victory, and failure would eliminate the whole team. But Bo calmly replied that they already knew their own limits and were simply grateful to compete. When Moret asked how they would even find Wuzong, Du explained that someone with Wang's personality would definitely head for the area with the most badge marks, rob every team there, and eventually travel toward the exit. All they had to do was intercept him along the way. As they climbed through a fog-covered mountain trail, a thunderous roar echoed from below. Looking down, they found another team desperately battling a massive BB wolf. Du was stunned because it was one of the monsters from the crystal space, yet the Alien Race Illustrated Handbook contained no record of creatures from that world. That discovery made him question whether the monsters inside the crystal space had originally come from the spirit realms. Below the cliff, a woman blamed Wang for putting them in danger, while the BB wolf continued attacking relentlessly. One teammate desperately told Xiaomei to run, but before the monster could finish them, a single sword slash instantly killed it. Xiaomei looked up, thinking a teacher had arrived, only to find Du standing above them instead. His first question was whether they had seen Wuzong. One of the rescued students explained that the first marked location had already been empty, and while heading toward the second, they found Wuzong fighting 10 BB wolves. Following their teacher's orders, they retreated immediately, but one monster chased them all the way there. Hearing that, Du quickly asked where the battle had happened. The student pointed toward a forest hidden beneath thick fog, and Du immediately realized there were no badge marks in that direction, leaving him wondering what Wang was doing there. Du quickly realized that whenever something seemed out of place, there was always a hidden reason behind it. Even so, if the rescued students had told the truth, Wang should have been exhausted after battling 10 monsters, making this the perfect chance to strike. Determined not to waste the opportunity, Du ordered his teammates to move immediately. As they rushed through the forest, Mireille couldn't believe fate had handed them exactly the opening they needed. Bo asked whether Du already had a strategy, but Du suddenly stopped and warned everyone not to make a single reckless move after they arrived. A bad feeling had been growing in his mind, so he ordered them to follow every command without question. His teammates exchanged uneasy looks before agreeing, and the group pushed deeper into the mist, unaware that a monstrous wolf with glowing red eyes was silently watching from the shadows. After a long run, Bo began doubting they were even on the right path, since Wang was nowhere to be seen. Then Du's expression changed. He instantly realized they had walked straight into a trap. A pack of savage BB wolves burst from the darkness and completely surrounded them. His terrified teammates immediately demanded to know what those monsters were, while Du pieced everything together. The rescued students had only told half the truth. They really had encountered Wang, but he had never traveled this route. Instead, they deliberately lured Du's team into the wolves' territory, planning to collect their badges after the beasts finished them off. Bo was horrified to discover they had wandered into a medium-sized wolf den filled with 20 BB wolves, while Moray finally understood how carefully the trap had been planned. Du quickly warned everyone that although these wolves were fewer than the ones inside the crystal space, their life intensity was much higher. He ordered them not to bleed under any circumstances, because the beasts became berserk at the sight of blood, and reminded them that their deadliest attacks came from the spikes covering the backs of their claws. Without another word, Du launched into the air and instantly cut down a roaring BB wolf. Inside the auditorium, spectators watched the desperate battle unfold. Some believed the Liang City team had foolishly walked into a wolf den by blindly following their navigation and would be eliminated immediately after winning their previous fight. They claimed only senior sister Zhou from High City possessed enough strength to survive against 20 native wolves. Principal Li could only wonder if his team would really fall in the first round, while Cao sighed that it looked like they would all be flying home together that night. Mayor Q pointed out that the students had entered a medium-sized wolf den and asked Zhou about their odds of surviving. Zhou answered that their chances were below 10%, leaving Mayor Q stunned. Zhou explained that the opening badge battle existed to teach these young geniuses how cruel the real world truly was. Their cities might seem peaceful, but beyond them lay a world overrun by monsters, and every future martial artist had to face that reality. When Mayor Ku asked whether avoiding wolf dens guaranteed safety, Joe explained that every badge had been placed behind seemingly harmless wolf dens, meaning anyone who followed their navigation without thinking would eventually walk into danger. Facing a few BB wolves wasn't a problem, but the Liang City team had entered a den containing 20 of them. Asked whether High City's team could survive such a situation, Joe confidently replied that with his daughter Xia Wu and Q's son Ku Jungyan present, even a large wolf den wouldn't stop them. Meanwhile, Du effortlessly cut down another BB wolf and realized these monsters were too weak to survive even one strike from him. Seeing that he had drawn most of the pack's attention, he concluded his teammates could hold out as long as the wolves didn't enter berserk mode. Suddenly, a massive BB wolf charged straight toward them, forcing his teammates to cry out for Chengdu's help. Moretta urged Bo to finish his enemies quickly so they could reinforce Du, and the two split the remaining wolves between themselves. Du activated, painting the ground as a prison, erupting with energy as he fought two wolves at once before leaping into the air and unleashing flowing light, sword art, second stance, golden drums ringing to the heavens, instantly killing a massive wolf. Without slowing down, he chained into a powerful rising slash before releasing the third stance, breeze in the forest, shredding another target with a relentless barrage. When three BB wolves attacked from above together, Du answered with flowing light, sword art, fourth stance, pale dragon point thrust. Having fought these monsters countless times inside the crystal space, he knew every habit, movement, and coordinated attack they possessed. Watching the battle, Moret cursed in frustration because the strongest student in Liang City now felt like the weakest member of the team. Du knew most BB wolves possessed at least level 5 life intensity, while the strongest nearly reached level 6.5. Although his own attacks could reach the power of level 7 life intensity, he couldn't fight recklessly. He had to wait for each wolf to attack first. He also realized Bo was already struggling to hold off 3 BB wolves alone and had no chance of helping Murray. Du understood his current strength and speed were still lacking by just one final step. If his sword became even 1% faster, he could break through the encirclement. As another BB wolf roared and slashed downward, Du met its claws with a storm of rapid sword strikes. Estimating they had only 2 minutes to reduce the pack to single digits before escape became impossible, he pushed himself even harder, pouring more energy into every swing as his sword continued moving faster while he fought without stopping. As the battle dragged on, Du slowly settled into his rhythm and realized that if he could keep fighting at this pace, his team still had a real chance to survive. That hope vanished the moment he learned Moray's arm had been slashed, leaving 2 BB wolves standing right in front of him. Holding his injured arm, Moray apologized, but Du immediately ordered everyone to retreat before the wolves entered berserk mode. Bo and Moray hesitated for only a second before a giant wolf erupted with dark energy and charged straight at Moray. Lightning flashed around Du as he instantly intercepted the beast and cut it down. He then declared that he would stay behind alone, assuring them he wouldn't die because Teacher Ling was secretly watching nearby. This was the only way the team could reach the next round, so he ordered them to leave at once. Bo finally accepted the decision, telling Moret they could no longer hold the wolves back. As his teammates escaped, Du remembered that berserk BB wolves gained terrifying speed and strength but completely lost their senses, attacking the nearest living target without hesitation. He had already survived 30 berserk BB wolves inside the crystal space, and now he was about to relive that nightmare. The monsters rushed him from every direction, and when one berserk wolf struck from above, Du barely blocked its blade-like claws before realizing the beast had reached level 7 life intensity. Inside High City No. 1 High School's auditorium, the audience watched in disbelief. Many believed no one could survive a medium-sized wolf den after the pack entered berserk mode, not even someone with tier 199% martial arts mastery. Others regretted losing the chance to see the 4 Great Perfects clash in round 2, while some insisted Zhou Xiao and Ku Zhongtian could have cleared the wolves without difficulty. Mayor Q praised Du for surviving this long, and Zhou admitted the boy puzzled him. After reviewing Du's profile, Mayor Q dismissed everything as extraordinary talent, since Du had never even left Liang City before arriving in High City. Zhou shook his head and explained that Du's martial arts weren't what surprised him. Although his flowing light sword art hadn't reached tier 199%, he could predict enemy attacks without even looking, as if he had survived countless battles on the front lines. Mayor Q fell silent. Ordinary people knew nothing about the spirit realms, much less BB wolves. Zhou had originally suspected Du came from the extreme martial palace because of his knowledge, but his investigation revealed nothing more than an ordinary family background. Meanwhile, Du stood alone against the encroaching pack, cutting through multiple attacks with breeze in the forest while never losing focus. Aside from the strongest level 7 wolf, every remaining monster possessed between level 6 and 6.5 life intensity. Even though only around a dozen remained, together they were even more dangerous than the green firefly giant from the crystal space. Du struck one wolf before driving his sword into a tree and using it to launch himself higher. He dove back toward the pack, hoping to eliminate the weaker wolves first, and successfully killed one with a single slash. But the monsters immediately adapted, constantly surrounding and pressuring him until his stamina rapidly drained away. Knowing the fight had to end quickly, Du struggled against their relentless assault as his speed gradually fell behind. He finally found an opening and landed another heavy strike, only for another wolf to slash across his body moments later. Blood poured from his side, but instead of panicking, Du realized he had finally found the key to defeating them. Enduring the pain, he understood his sword had to become faster, stronger, and heavier. He had to surpass his own limits. Thoughts of his family, years of relentless training, and teacher Ling flashed through his mind. This wasn't just another tournament anymore. It was the moment that would decide his future, and he refused to lose. Pouring everything into one final attack, Du immediately sensed that this swing felt completely different. The bee-wolves lunged from both sides, while the largest wolf confidently trapped his blade between its claws. Watching from a nearby tree, Ling regretted that Du had trusted those students so easily. It was a painful lesson every martial artist eventually had to learn, but he believed the price had become too great and prepared to intervene. Before he could move, however, an overwhelming aura suddenly exploded from Du's body. Even Du himself could tell this sword strike was unlike any before it. Violent sword aura erupted around him as he instantly cut through the wolves before planting his feet firmly on the ground. In that instant, he realized his sword had become perfectly synchronized with the wind itself, making every strike even more powerful. A system notification appeared, announcing that Flowing Light Sword Art had advanced from Tier 198% to Tier 199%. The entire auditorium fell silent in shock. Cao couldn't believe Du had achieved a breakthrough in the middle of such a desperate battle, while Li pointed out that he had now reached the same Tier 199% level as the other top competitors. Even Zhou was stunned, because the overwhelming pressure of a medium-sized wolf den should have exhausted any student, even one at Tier 199%. Mayor Q observed that Du's Flowing Light Sword Art was clearly stronger than Tier 199% alone could explain. Zhou concluded that Du must be using mental power attachment, and that his mental power was already approaching level 10. Amazed by the revelation, Mayor Q declared that Du had the potential to become a soaring martial artist, while Zhou admitted that possessing such incredible mental power before even becoming a true martial artist was nothing short of astonishing. Zhou explained that Du's mental power still needed one final qualitative leap. Only after reaching level 10 would his soul transform into a true martial soul. Even then, he warned that Du might never reach level 15, because breaking through to Tier 1 100% martial arts mastery was one of the 3 mandatory requirements for becoming a soaring martial artist. Mayor Q laughed, saying Zhou was being far too demanding, since Du was already exceptional in his eyes. Meanwhile, the audience became suspicious after noticing the Mi City team had returned immediately after the Liang City team rescued them. It didn't take long for people to realize they had deliberately lured Du's group into the wolf den. Deep inside the forest, Xiaomei asked Zhang Shuai if he was certain they could steal Liang City's badges. Shuai confidently replied that no team could survive that many BB wolves. He expected their teacher to step in, eliminate the monsters, and automatically disqualify the entire team. Since eliminated contestants had to leave their badges behind, and the badges weren't tracked while no other teams or wolves were nearby, collecting 2 more badges would be effortless. Before long, the My City team reached the battlefield. One teammate praised Shuai's flawless plan, but as Shuai looked across the countless wolf corpses, something immediately felt wrong. The badges were sitting openly on top of a dead wolf, yet despite the obvious signs of a massive battle, he couldn't shake the feeling they were missing something. Suddenly, the truth clicked. Shuai instantly shouted for everyone to run because the Liang City team had never been eliminated. The badges were bait. His teammates stared at the mountain of dead BB wolves, refusing to believe Du had killed every one of them alone. At that exact moment, a sword slash shot through the air, catching the entire Mi City team completely by surprise. Du calmly confirmed that he had indeed killed every wolf himself before stepping out of the bushes alongside his teammates. Curious, he asked Shuai how he realized the trap. Shuai nervously admitted the wolves' wounds had exposed everything. Team leaders weren't allowed to carry weapons, so there was no way Teacher Ling could have left behind clean sword cuts. Looking at the slashed BB wolf, Du suddenly remembered that Teacher Ling always used different weapons during sparring, meaning he had never discovered what weapon his teacher truly specialized in. Silently reminding himself to pay closer attention in the future, Du picked up a badge and asked where Wang had gone. He casually tossed another badge to Shuai, explaining he didn't care about collecting badges because the only reason he entered the 100 Cities Hegemony tournament was to fight Wang. Realizing that was Du's true goal, Shuai revealed they had encountered Wang in the opposite direction while heading toward the star mark behind them, where they also ran into the BB wolves. Hearing that, Du immediately realized something was seriously wrong with the tournament's official straight-line navigation system. After checking the map, Shuai concluded that Wang had already left his previous location, but should still be somewhere near the star mark. The next instant, Du struck down the entire Mi City team and coldly ordered them to leave their badges behind before withdrawing from the competition. Shuai angrily cursed at him, but Du remained completely indifferent, explaining as he walked away that he was simply returning the favor for kindly revealing Wang's location. Just then, a bald man stepped out from the bushes. It was the Mi City team leader, who accused Du of lacking martial ethics and breaking his word. Bo couldn't believe this teacher had the nerve to lecture Du after his own students had tricked them first, while Moray exploded with anger. Du immediately recognized Fun as the Mi City team leader, and calmly replied that what he had done was simply called deception. Exactly the same trick Fun's side had used. After checking the Mi City team's badges, everyone realized they already possessed the martial character badge. Bo finally understood why they had set up the entire scheme. They already had the 2 badges needed to qualify. Looking over his interface, Moray asked whether Du still intended to challenge Wang in his exhausted condition. Du shook his head, admitting both his stamina and mental power were nearly depleted. Even an ordinary opponent would now be troublesome, let alone someone as powerful as Wang. Still, following Wang's movements had allowed them to avoid the other perfect-level experts, though he was surprised they had gathered the required badges so quickly. As the Mi City team leader carried his students away, Du instructed his teammates to head straight for the moon mark and complete the first round. Pointing at the map on his interface, he ordered everyone to follow the route he selected instead of the direct path. His teammates immediately questioned the unnecessary detour, but Du explained that the badge collection rules felt suspicious. The organizers claimed the badge locations were safe, yet obtaining them had been far too easy. Wang had supposedly encountered BB wolves before reaching the star mark, and Du specifically pointed out the importance of the word midway. Bo instantly understood, while Moray realized the real danger wasn't waiting at the destinations, but hidden along the routes between them. After carefully studying the map, Du concluded the entire forest had been deliberately designed as a giant trap. Traveling between 2 star marks offered the safest way to avoid wolf dens, but it also greatly increased the odds of encountering rival teams. Every part of the competition had been meticulously planned, meaning any team without enough strength would never reach the moon mark after collecting their badges, unless luck was completely on their side. Until the assessment truly ended, nobody could afford to relax. His teammates agreed, but before they could continue, movement rustled through the bushes. A blond man stepped out, and Du's expression immediately hardened. They had run straight into the High City team, which included at least 1, possibly 2, perfect-level experts. Just moments away from the finish line, they had encountered the worst opponents possible. The blond man calmly asked whether Du had reached Tier 1 perfect. Du immediately sensed the overwhelming sword intent radiating from him, and realized the man had identified his strength at a glance. The moment he felt that pressure, Du recognized him as another Tier 1 perfect expert. Ku Zhongtian. Zhongtian calmly set an ornate box on the ground, and 6 swords instantly slid out from both sides, putting Du's entire team on full alert. Before either side could make a move, a voice suddenly ordered Zhongtian to stop. Seeing the blood covering Du, Xiao immediately concluded he had just survived a battle against a pack of BB wolves. She declared that defeating him in such a condition wouldn't be a fair victory. At the same time, she admitted she hadn't expected another Tier 1 perfect fighter besides Wang, and boldly announced that she would eliminate both Du and Wang over the next 2 rounds. Xiao proudly reminded everyone that High City had won the championship 9 years in a row, and nothing would stop them from claiming a 10th consecutive title. After the High City team left, Bo couldn't help praising Zhou Xiao for acting so honorably, while Du silently wondered if Bo had completely lost his mind. To him, describing someone nicknamed the little girl selling nuclear bombs as heroic was almost funny, especially after remembering how she had once ambushed him without warning. Even Zhongtian was surprised by Xiao's speech because her usual fighting style revolved around exploiting every weakness and giving opponents no room to breathe. Xiao casually admitted the tournament was being broadcast live, so she simply needed to maintain a good public image. Later that night at the hotel, Du completed his daily mental power refinement with the Void Immortal Visualization method before collapsing onto his bed to check the tournament standings. 50 teams, or 150 competitors, had survived the opening badge battle. After doing the math, Du realized he needed to defeat 4 more opponents the following day to qualify for the 3rd round. His mental power remained at level 9, but if he could clear every monster in the 7th wave inside the crystal space, it would finally reach level 10 and undergo a qualitative transformation. In his mind, achieving level 10 mental power would all but guarantee him first place. As soon as he fell asleep, his consciousness entered the crystal space once again. Standing firm inside his mental world, Du released a brilliant blue aura as the 7th wave arrived. Towering bears armed with multiple swords roared as they charged toward him. A system notification identified them as 2-faced 3-knife bears, each possessing level 7 life intensity. One of the beasts swung its blade, and although Du blocked the attack, he was impressed by its incredible strength and immediately repositioned to search for another angle. He leaped into the air to dodge the next strike, only to discover another pair of eyes on the back of the monster's head. That was when he finally understood why it was called the 2-faced 3-knife bear. The creature instantly tracked him and unleashed another sweeping slash, but Du escaped with a mid-air flip before landing smoothly. Determined to defeat the monster that very night and strengthen himself before tomorrow's tournament, he launched another attack. As his sword flashed toward the bear's neck, he noticed the monster made no effort to defend it. Its neck wasn't the weak point. He tried its head next, but that wasn't vulnerable either. Du quickly realized the beast fought with complete confidence, focusing entirely on offense instead of protecting itself. Even a strike aimed at its heart produced the same result. Carefully observing every movement, Du blocked another incoming attack before noticing something unusual. The bear's tail constantly moved away from his blade. In that instant, he understood that the monster had been unconsciously protecting its true weak point all along. He deliberately jumped back, pretending to target the bear's head again while patiently waiting for the perfect opportunity. The moment the opening appeared, Du slipped beneath the monster and rushed straight for its tail. The two-faced three-knife bear instantly flew into a rage, reacting far more violently than before. Seizing the chance, Du unleashed another slash, determined to see how much longer the beast could keep its weakness hidden. Meanwhile, back at the hotel, Xiaogu and the others were summoned by Teacher Zhang, who asked if they remembered the Liang City team they had encountered earlier. Xiao immediately recalled the student who had reached Tier 1 Perfect. Teacher Zhang revealed his name was Chandu and warned that Du could become their greatest obstacle on the road to the championship. Despite coming from a small city like Liang City, he had single-handedly wiped out an entire medium-sized wolf den. Hearing that, Xiao wondered whether Du had already reached the Tier 1 limit. Teacher Zhang explained that he hadn't, but he had definitely entered the comprehension by analogy stage. The only question was whether he had already stepped into the form level or even the intent level. Zhang Tian was shocked to hear that Du's martial arts comprehension might already rival Joss. Teacher Zhang reminded Xiao to remain cautious no matter whether her opponent was Du, Wang, or anyone else. When asked how confident she was about defeating Du, Xiao answered without hesitation that High City's 10th straight championship would have no blind spots. The following day, inside the tournament arena, Zhou announced that the second round would consist entirely of one-on-one matches, with every competitor's life intensity restricted to level 5, while teammates would never face each other. The organizers explained that the 150 remaining competitors would be reduced to 75, then 38, then 19, before deciding the final top 10 through 4 straight elimination rounds. Match order would be adjusted dynamically according to battle length, rewarding faster winners with earlier matches while giving those who fought longer extra recovery time. Each competitor's seat number reflected the order in which they qualified from the previous round, and Du noticed he had been assigned rank 16 after his team became the 4th group to advance. As everyone's attention shifted toward the giant screen, the entire arena erupted when the opening matchup was revealed. It was an unbelievable showdown between Zhou Xiao of High City and Wang of Lu City. A dangerous grin spread across Wang's face, while Xiao answered with nothing more than a dismissive scoff. Even so, everyone knew the championship would not be decided by the very first battle. Everyone knew the opening match wouldn't decide the tournament. Dangerous contenders were still waiting, including Chandu, who had single-handedly destroyed an entire wolf den, and the mysterious Kuzhong Tian, who hadn't even revealed his true strength yet. Curious, Du focused his attention on Zhou Xiao's battle against Wang. As soon as both fighters entered the arena, the system suppressed their life intensity to level 5. Xiao casually spun her weapons, while Wang stood waiting in the center. He admitted he had wanted this fight for a long time, and Xiao calmly replied that if he wanted another chance afterward, he could always challenge her again at High City No. 1 High School. Drawing his sword, Wang declared he wanted to face the version of Xiao carrying the pressure of winning High City's 10th straight championship. The version forced to fight at full power. Everyone called her unbeatable among their generation, but he refused to believe it. Xiao simply told him it was time to start believing. Both fighters exploded forward at the same instant, and their weapons collided with tremendous force, sending them sliding backward. The display immediately revealed that both competitors possessed Tier 1 90% martial arts mastery. When a spectator asked how the tournament measured those numbers, Bo explained that their protective suits contained force-sensing chips capable of calculating martial arts mastery from the increase in combat power. Wang attacked again with overwhelming force, forcing Xiao to evade at the very last moment as his martial arts index climbed to 92%. He instantly closed the gap, but Xiao calmly avoided him again. Even while Wang remained airborne, she never relaxed her guard or recklessly pursued him. Instead, she patiently waited for an opening while secretly targeting his supporting hand. Realizing exactly where her attack was headed, Wang drove his knee into her stomach. Xiao frowned from the impact before slipping sideways to evade his next strike. As the battle intensified, both martial arts indexes continued climbing until they reached 99%. Feeling the intent hidden within Wang's sword, Xiao realized she couldn't afford to take the attack head-on. She tightened her grip and redirected his slash, even leaving a wound across his shoulder as Wang's martial arts index rose to 95%. Laughing, he admitted she truly lived up to her reputation. Watching from the sidelines, Du couldn't understand why he couldn't recognize the basic martial arts either fighter was using. Xiao smiled and declared the real battle was only beginning before releasing a surge of purple energy with her sword. Wang carefully observed every movement as the two launched into another relentless exchange of blows. At the same time, Ling explained to Du that because he had only recently reached tier 199%, he had never told him about the mysterious final 1%. Confused, Du wondered whether the next step after 99% wasn't simply 100%, or perhaps 99.1%. Ling shook his head and revealed that the stage between 99% and 100% was called comprehension by analogy. He asked Du whether he had noticed that neither fighter appeared to be using their original basic martial arts, even though their weapons clearly weren't ordinary swords or daggers. Comprehension by analogy allowed martial artists to perform their original techniques through completely different weapons while preserving all of their original characteristics. The explanation instantly made everything click for Du. Wang's true foundation was the cloak hammer technique. Shifting into the second stance, he activated chaotic cloak hammer technique, surrounding Xiao with tremendous pressure. Although he wielded a sword, he perfectly reproduced the heavy momentum of all four hammer stances. Ling explained this was the first level of comprehension by analogy, the form stage. Beyond that lay the intent stage, where opponents could no longer identify the user's original martial art at all. He then revealed that Xiao's true foundation was the Holy King Staff technique. Wang unleashed the second stance, Guanyin's Tears, sending a devastating attack toward Xiao. She concentrated completely, locating his real position because swords couldn't create true clones. Wang praised her keen observation before immediately transitioning into the third stance, Three Hammers of Bitter Winter. A massive wave of energy crashed toward Xiao, but she spotted a narrow opening and counterattacked. Wang instantly grabbed her arm and declared she had fallen directly into his trap. At that exact moment, the interface displayed his martial arts index rising to 99.9%, the quasi-limit. A blinding pillar of light erupted as his aura reached its peak. Thick smoke engulfed the arena, leaving only a lone silhouette standing inside. The audience panicked, believing Xiao had already lost after Wang's devastating strike, while he confidently declared that the title of the strongest among their generation now belonged to him. Watching his terrifying aura, Du quietly admitted he was fortunate not to have fought Wang the previous day. Then, from inside the smoke, Xiao tightened her grip on her dagger and unleashed Holy King Staff technique, fourth stance, drowning the 1,000-man army. A massive wave of blue energy exploded across the arena, completely catching Wang off guard. Her martial arts index instantly reached 100%. The crowd erupted in disbelief, as spectators pointed out that reaching the Tier 1 limit was one of the 3 essential requirements for becoming a soaring martial artist, making it unbelievable that Xiao had accomplished it at only 17 years old. Another spectator added that the last person to reach the same milestone before turning 18 had been Wawa, the principal of one of the top 8 schools. Unable to continue fighting, Wang dropped his weapon and conceded. Du sighed to himself, disappointed that the battle hadn't lasted longer because he had secretly hoped both sides would exhaust each other first. Mayor Q finally understood why Zhou had spoken about 3 perfect-level martial artists earlier. His daughter had already reached the Tier 1 limit while hiding her true strength from everyone. Zhou explained that she had only broken through the week before, and not even her own team leader knew about it. Revealing the truth too early would have crushed every other competitor's fighting spirit. Mayor Q nodded in agreement, saying that preserving a student's confidence was just as important as cultivating their strength. Watching from a distance, 2 university scouts also observed the match. The man in the cap praised Xiao's extraordinary talent, while the white-haired man calmly replied that her father was a 3-star deacon of the Extreme Martial Palace. The white-haired scout explained that because of her family background, Xiao would almost certainly choose Black Dragon Martial Arts University. As Xiao walked out of the smoke, the man in the cap admitted Wang was just as impressive, but Tianfeng Martial Arts University had already secured him through early admission. The other scouts sighed that Keelan Martial Arts University had reacted too slowly and wondered whether any other worthwhile prospects remained. The man in the cap replied that they were only interested in true geniuses. The following matches ended almost instantly. One spectator yawned that the fights were boring after witnessing the incredible clash between Xiao and Wang. Compared to that battle, everyone else looked ordinary. Then the next matchup appeared on the screen. Chun Du of Liang City versus Zhu Diran of Wang City. The audience immediately came alive. Du was already famous for wiping out an entire wolf den alone, and many expected another exciting fight. Walking into the arena, Du noticed Diran held the number 2 seed, meaning he had been the strongest competitor in his group and the first to collect all the required badges the previous day. Smiling, Diran admitted he never imagined Xiao and Wang would be such monsters. With those two around, simply reaching the top 10 would satisfy him. Du casually replied that Diran sounded very confident about making it that far. Diran praised Du's feat against the wolf den, but questioned how much strength he still had left after yesterday's battle. Du answered with action instead of words, instantly launching a powerful slash. Diran blocked it, and their weapons collided with explosive force. The display showed both fighters possessed Tier 1 90% martial arts mastery, shocking the audience with yet another hidden perfect level expert. Dairon laughed that Du was trying to finish the fight too quickly and guessed he was worried his stamina wouldn't hold out. He immediately activated Muramasa blade technique, first stance, invisible edge, sending his martial arts index soaring to 96%. His glowing blade swept forward with tremendous force, while both his sword and supporting fist carved trails of smoke through the air. Du quickly widened the distance and recognized the style as a strength-focused Muramasa blade technique supported by the left hand. Its greatest flaw, however, was its lack of flexibility. He immediately understood Dairon's strategy. Believing Du was still exhausted from the wolf den, Dairon planned to drag the battle out until Du collapsed. If not for the crystal space restoring his condition, that plan might have worked perfectly. Instead, Du rushed straight back in, determined to end everything immediately. Seeing Du openly using a thrust-type martial art against him, Dairon exploded with anger and shouted for him to stop looking down on him. He unleashed Muramasa blade technique, fourth stance, crescent moon sky piercer. Du answered with flowing light sword art, second stance, golden drums ringing to the heavens. His martial arts index instantly climbed to 99.3%. The collision blasted Dairon's sword completely out of his hand. He could only stare at Du in disbelief before Du finished the battle with painting the ground as a prison. Dairon collapsed to the ground, and Du calmly asked whether he had really believed he could still reach the top 10 after meeting him. Even so, Du admitted to himself that Dairon had been far stronger than expected, forcing him to avoid several direct clashes. That was exactly why he intended to finish every fight as fast as possible. Watching from above, the white-haired scout noticed that Du's true martial arts mastery didn't seem capable of producing a 99.3% attack on its own. He suspected mental power attachment had amplified the strike. The man in the cap replied that although Du was undeniably talented, level 9 mental power only barely met the minimum standard. The white-haired scout agreed, regretting that Du hadn't reached level 10 to transform his soul into a martial soul. The man in the cap then explained the Keelan class's strict admission requirements. Before turning 18, applicants needed either level 11 life intensity, level 10 mental power, or tier 1 limit martial arts. That was why they attended this tournament, to discover a once-in-a-generation genius who fulfilled at least one of those conditions. In his opinion, Du's mental power, martial arts, and life intensity all fell just short of the elite standard. Even so, compared to Dairon, Chandu still ranked near the top of the passing line, making him worth recruiting. The scout suggested approaching Du that very night to see whether he would sign a letter of intent. After the second round concluded, everyone turned their attention toward the upcoming finals, while Du quietly returned to his hotel room as evening fell. Thanks to the tournament's battle duration system, he had successfully avoided facing Zhou Xiao through all 4 rounds and advanced smoothly. That night, he entered the crystal space once again, realizing that real combat had dramatically accelerated the growth of his life intensity. Although he had narrowly failed the previous night, he was now certain he could wipe out every two-faced three-knife bear. One powerful slash instantly cut a bear down, and a system notification appeared, announcing that his life intensity had increased from 5.8 to 5.9. Du smiled as he realized his stats had finally improved, confirming that fighting the BB Wolves and surviving 4 tournament rounds had been the correct decision. A gigantic grasshopper monster stepped forward, and Du decided to use it to measure exactly how much stronger that 0.1 increase had made him. Before the battle could continue, his consciousness suddenly returned to reality. Teacher Ling had sent him a message. Du immediately went to meet him and asked what had happened. Inside Ling Yun's room, he was introduced to Teacher Yu and Teacher Ping. Ling explained that both instructors represented the Special Admissions Office of Keelan Martial Arts University, one of the world's 3 greatest martial arts universities, alongside Black Dragon Martial Arts University and Tianfeng Martial Arts University. Teacher Yu explained they specialized in recruiting students who either qualified for or had the potential to enter the prestigious Keelan class. Teacher Ping added that the university invested its finest resources into the Keelan class to cultivate future soaring martial artists. Du honestly admitted he didn't believe he was qualified before asking whether reaching the Tier 1 limit or achieving level 11 life intensity before turning 18 held any deeper meaning. Realizing Ling hadn't yet revealed the truth, Teacher Yu explained that every martial artist awakened a secret treasure inside their body upon advancing, and that treasure continuously absorbed stellar energy while increasing mental power. Anyone who reached Tier 1 limit martial arts and level 11 life intensity before turning 18 would awaken 2 secret treasures instead of 1. If someone also met the mental power requirement at the same time, they would unlock a 3rd. He finally revealed that the human body contained a total of 10 secret treasures. Teacher Yu explained that every secret treasure functioned like a passive skill, permanently increasing a martial artist's attributes. The more treasures someone awakened, the stronger they became. Listening closely, Du learned that opening 2 secret treasures before level 10 earned the title of genius, while awakening 3 was the mark of a peerless genius. Teacher Ping admitted Du hadn't yet reached the standard for special admission, but his potential was undeniable. He offered Du a C-class letter of intent, reserving him a place as a backup candidate for the Keelin class. He explained that elite universities such as Keelin, Black Dragon, and Tianfeng recruited outstanding talent entirely through contracts. By signing, Du would immediately receive resources worth millions, including premium blood medicines, martial arts hall sparring partners, and mental tempering pills. If he later met the requirements before officially becoming a martial artist, the contract would automatically be upgraded to B class, and he could directly enter the Keelin class as soon as a spot became available. Du's first question wasn't about resources or status. Instead, he asked whether his family could move with him if he accepted the contract. Teacher Yu regretfully refused, explaining that university regulations required his family to remain where they currently lived. Teacher Ping added that, for everyone's safety, only active martial artists on official missions and soaring martial artists were allowed to travel freely between regions. Hearing that answer, Du politely declined the offer. The two recruiters were stunned, and immediately wondered whether he had already chosen Black Dragon or Tianfeng. Instead, Du revealed that he planned to attend Mount Huang Martial Arts University, one of the top 8 famous schools. Teacher Yu was completely speechless. Losing Du to one of the other top 3 universities would have been understandable, but losing him to Mount Huang was an entirely different story. Du calmly explained that staying close to his family mattered more because he wanted to protect them from future monster invasions. Teacher Ping made one final attempt to change his mind, reminding him that only 0.0014% of all candidates ever entered the Keelin class. More than half of humanity's strongest martial artists had graduated from one of the 3 elite universities. If Du truly wanted to protect the people he loved, then he needed to aim much higher, because a true genius could change the world in ways ordinary people never could. Du simply smiled, thanked them for recognizing his talent, and respectfully refused again. After the recruiters left, he turned to Teacher Ling and asked what he thought. Ling replied that, although listening to experienced advice was never a bad thing, there was nothing wrong with choosing his own path. He simply encouraged Du to give everything he had in tomorrow's finals. Deep down, however, Ling knew he still needed to speak with the principal and search for another way to convince him. Elsewhere, at the Zhou family's training grounds, Xiao continued practicing relentlessly. She repeatedly unleashed powerful staff techniques until frustration began to show. Her father, Zhou Cheng, casually stopped one of her attacks with only 2 fingers, before pointing out that she had been attacking him non-stop for 3 hours and needed a break. Xiao pouted, complaining that one day she would definitely defeat him. Zhou Cheng handed her a drink, reminding her to focus on winning the championship before thinking about surpassing him. The moment she realized it was white peach flavored, her mood instantly brightened. Smiling confidently, Xiao declared she still had several trump cards she hadn't revealed, and was certain High City would capture its 10th straight championship. The next morning, Du arrived at High City No. 1 High School's auditorium with Teacher Ling. Almost immediately, he sensed someone watching him. Looking around, he noticed several principals observing him from a distance. Principal Cao remarked that Du's level 9 mental power was already sharp enough to detect their gazes, while Principal Li praised him as an exceptional talent. Ling explained that Principal Li had been following Du's progress closely and had specifically come to watch today's matches. The other spectators nearby were principals from various schools as well. An announcement congratulated the top 10 competitors before revealing the finals format. The championship would begin with 5 randomly selected one-on-one matches, reducing the field from 10 competitors to 5. After that, the tournament would switch to a gauntlet format. One finalist would be chosen at random to challenge the other 4 in succession, earning 2 points for every victory and losing 1 point for every defeat. Once that run ended, the remaining contestant with the highest score would become the next challenger, and the process would continue unless tied scores forced the system to make another random selection. After quickly analyzing the rules, Du realized the maximum possible score was 8 points. Normally, ties wouldn't happen, but there was one exception. If the very first challenger defeated all 4 opponents and earned 8 points, the remaining 4 would all sit at -1, forcing the system to randomly choose the next challenger. Realizing how demanding the gauntlet would be, Du decided he had to preserve as much stamina as possible. Moments later, the first-round pairings appeared on the giant screen. The opening match would be Chen Du of Liang City versus Ku Zhongtian of Hai City. The audience instantly erupted because 2 consummate-level fighters were colliding in the very first battle. Some spectators mocked Du, claiming he had only avoided Zhou Xiao by exploiting the tournament format and sneaking into the top 10. In their eyes, Zhongtian would defeat him without much trouble. Du, however, immediately realized something more troubling. If High City had already planned its route to the championship, forcing him into an exhausting opening match would severely weaken him before the gauntlet even began. Many spectators argued Zhongtian was already stronger than Du, let alone Xiao. Others confidently predicted High City would sweep the top 3 and secure its 10th consecutive title. Watching from the stands, Teacher Yu quietly wondered whether there was even any reason to continue watching the finals. Beside him, Teacher Ping held a black card containing 1 million, intending to give it to Du after his inevitable defeat as an investment in his future. In Ping's eyes, someone who cared so deeply about protecting his family would never choose the wrong path. Teacher Ping believed Du's only real obstacle was a lack of resources. With talent like his, money was the only thing holding him back. Stepping into the arena with his sword in hand, Du quietly analyzed Ku Zhongtian. Every one of Zhongtian's previous opponents had either surrendered immediately or been defeated in a single strike, leaving Du unable to judge his true strength or even determine which basic martial art he specialized in. Deciding not to rush, Du planned to observe him first. Smiling calmly, Zhongtian placed his sword box on the ground, drew a blade, and admitted he had always expected this fight to happen. Before Du could respond, Zhongtian exploded forward, leaving the box behind. Du barely blocked the opening attack, only to discover that Zhongtian was using flowing light sword art. Zhongtian laughed, saying he had been just as surprised to see Du using the same sword style the day before. Since they practiced the same art, he wanted to settle the match through nothing but pure skill and power. Their blades clashed violently as Zhongtian continued pressing the attack. With every collision, Du felt his opponent's sword becoming heavier and more oppressive, immediately realizing Zhongtian had gone all out from the very beginning. The audience watched as Zhongtian's martial arts index climbed to 99%, matching Du's. Without slowing down, Zhongtian swung again and declared their battle had only just begun. Du blocked another crushing strike, but couldn't understand how his opponent's power kept increasing after supposedly reaching his limit. For a brief moment, he even wondered whether Zhongtian had also mastered comprehension by analogy. Zhongtian dodged Du's counterattack, but immediately sensed the mental power attachment flowing through Du's sword. At the same moment, Du's martial arts index rose to 99.2%. Du reminded himself that 5 more victories still stood between him and the championship. He couldn't afford to waste stamina here. Zhongtian smiled and asked whether Du was finally ready to fight seriously. Du calmly replied that he would finish the battle in a single instant. Amused, Zhongtian challenged him to prove it. In the next heartbeat, Du activated flowing light sword art, 4th stance, pale dragon point thrust, surging forward with astonishing speed. Believing such a straightforward attack lacked the power to defeat him, Zhongtian prepared to counter. Then Du instantly switched techniques, seamlessly transforming the 4th stance into the 2nd stance, Golden Dragon returning to heaven. Recognizing the flawless transition, Zhongtian realized he was facing a true master. Before he could recover, Du chained directly into flowing light sword art, 3rd stance, Breeze in the Forest. Calmly bidding his opponent farewell, Du's sword burst through Zhongtian's defenses in a single decisive strike. Zhongtian cried out in disbelief as the blow landed, while Du simply turned away and rested his sword on his shoulder. At that moment, the system announced that Du's martial arts index had reached 100%. He had officially broken through to the Tier 1 limit. The entire arena fell silent before erupting into thunderous cheers. For many spectators, it was the first time they had ever witnessed someone reach the martial arts limit in person. Everyone realized Du had hidden his true strength all along, instantly turning the entire 100 Cities hegemony tournament upside down. Even after losing, Zhongtian couldn't understand what had happened. He admitted he never sensed any trace of intent during Du's seamless combination of the 4 stances, and couldn't comprehend how Du had reached the Tier 1 limit. Du simply announced he was leaving, and walked away as the system declared Chengdu of Liang City the winner. Internally, Du found the entire exchange amusing because Zhongtian had merely been fishing for information on behalf of his teammates. Watching from the stands, Principal Li was stunned that Du had improved another full percentage point in only a single day. Advancing from 99% to 100% required crossing 10 separate 0.1% thresholds, making such explosive progress almost impossible. Nearby, Teacher Yu and Teacher Ping were equally shocked. Ping admitted the odds of such rapid improvement were unbelievably small because no ordinary martial artist advanced that quickly. Just then, Zhou walked over and jokingly asked why they hadn't informed him they were coming. If nobody had mentioned it that morning, he would have had no idea they were even in High City. Teacher Yu congratulated him, remarking that his daughter had most likely already received a B-class letter of intent from Black Dragon Martial Arts University. Zhou humbly replied that she only had a little potential to become a soaring martial artist, before shifting the conversation to Du, saying he was looking forward to the remaining matches. Meanwhile, High City's supporters were thrown into despair after Wu O was defeated shortly after Zhongtian's loss. No one expected his opponent to break through during the middle of the battle. With only Xiao remaining, many feared High City's decade-long championship streak was about to end. Carrying her staff, Xiao calmly stepped into the arena as the crowd erupted in support. Her opponent remained completely confident in his Lumen Shield technique, believing its overwhelming defense would let him outlast her until an opening appeared. The instant the battle began, Xiao charged forward and unleashed a single glowing strike. Before anyone could even react, the system announced Zhou Xiao's victory. The audience exploded with cheers after she finished the match in only 1 second. Any worries about her losing instantly disappeared, as everyone became convinced she would completely overwhelm Du as well. With the opening round complete, the tournament seamlessly transitioned into the gauntlet stage. Du quietly wondered who the first challenger would be. Moments later, the system revealed Zhou Xiao's name. The crowd erupted once more, fully expecting her to sweep all 4 remaining opponents and claim the championship. Xiao walked into the arena, calmly announced the first person she wished to challenge, and chose Chen Du of the Liang City team. Du smiled, realizing she was every bit as confident as he expected. This was exactly the battle he had been waiting for. Xiao silently stared at him, and the instant the match began, she unleashed her full strength, immediately pushing her martial arts index to 100%. The spectators gasped, wondering if she intended to defeat Du with a single strike, while Du narrowed his eyes, realizing he was finally about to witness true limit intent. Witnessing Xiao sublimate a combat stance to a level that nearly touched the realm of metaphysics, Du immediately understood how extraordinary limit intent truly was. Without hesitation, Xiao unleashed Holy King Staff Technique, 4th stance, drowning 1,000 miles, sending a massive wave of energy crashing toward him. At that same moment, the system announced that Du's martial arts index had also reached 100%. He met the attack head-on and cleanly deflected it. Seeing her ultimate technique blocked, Xiao realized Du had finally begun fighting at full strength, and admitted he was far more capable than she expected. Du calmly gathered his energy as a brilliant blue aura burst from his body, instantly drawing the crowd's attention. Ling smiled in excitement, knowing Du had finally succeeded. Teacher Yu was equally stunned. The earlier data hadn't been wrong at all. Du's mental power had truly broken through to level 10, transforming his soul into a genuine martial soul. Wrapped in a dazzling blue aura, Du instantly seized the initiative. His speed increased so dramatically that even Xiao was caught off guard. His sword crashed down with tremendous force, forcing her to leap backward before he immediately closed the distance again. Xiao barely blocked the next strike, but could clearly feel the crushing weight behind every attack. She immediately realized this was the power of martial soul attachment. Du refused to give her a single moment to recover. Spotting an opening in her defense, he attacked without hesitation. Xiao's center of gravity shifted, forcing her to adjust her footing. The instant Du noticed her rhythm break, he understood victory would be his, as long as he never allowed her to regain her balance. Xiao barely managed to parry another blow, while Du continued increasing the pressure. Planting his feet firmly, he thrust his sword forward with complete confidence that he could finish the fight. Watching from the stands, Principal Qiao was amazed that Du had used level 10 mental power to forcefully raise his martial arts index to 100%. He couldn't believe the boy had concealed such an incredible trump card. Principal Li, who had originally planned to comfort Du after a loss, immediately changed his mind and silently rooted for him to win the championship instead. Nearby, Teacher Ping instantly upgraded Du's recruitment offer to a B-class letter of intent, convinced he fully deserved it. Teacher Yu sighed, realizing they would have to shamelessly recruit him again. Hearing that, Zhou quietly guessed Du must have rejected their offer the previous day. Teacher Yu teased Zhou for being hopelessly obsessed with his daughter, asking how he could remain so calm when Xiao seemed certain to lose unless something unexpected happened. Zhou calmly agreed, repeating that she would lose, unless something unexpected happened. And in the very next instant, exactly that happened. Du suddenly felt Xiao's strength and speed surge to an entirely different level. Xiao admitted that even her impossibly strict father would acknowledge Du as a true genius. Then she smiled proudly and declared that she was a genius among geniuses. Du immediately realized the truth. Xiao also possessed a martial soul. By combining Tier 1 limit martial arts with level 10 mental power, she had awakened the same terrifying power. A powerful aura wrapped around her metal staff as Du silently urged himself to move even faster. Xiao slammed her staff against his sword before charging forward. Du blocked again, but the overwhelming force drove him backward. A faint smile appeared on Xiao's face as she swung upward, knocking Du's sword completely out of his hand. The blade clattered onto the ground while Du's exhausted body trembled. Xiao asked whether he had finally run out of strength before confidently declaring the battle over. Deep down, she admitted Du had exceeded all her expectations, but she still believed he lacked the power to defeat her. Du calmly answered that she wasn't the one who would decide when the fight ended. As Xiao rushed in to finish him, brilliant blue light flashed across Du's eyes. He instantly unleashed mental shock, together with War Stomp. Xiao immediately realized what he had done. Du had sacrificed the strength of his body by pouring nearly all the power of his martial soul into his eyes to launch a devastating mental attack. The blue aura completely engulfed her as overwhelming pressure invaded her consciousness. Xiao was utterly shocked. She had never imagined Du possessed such terrifying mental power. Only then did she realize she had already fallen into an illusion created by his attack. Sweat streamed down her face while the blue energy continued raging around her. Suddenly, a strange sound echoed through the battlefield. From the smoke, an enormous, shadowy figure with a single glowing red eye slowly emerged. Tightening her grip on her staff, Xiao desperately gathered every remaining ounce of strength to resist the illusion. Meanwhile, Du's fallen sword became wrapped in blue energy. He calmly picked it up once more. The spectators frantically shouted for Xiao to wake up and move. None of them could accept the thought of her losing, and desperately hoped for one last miracle. Then a single slash tore across her chest. Du quietly declared that the battle was over. The system immediately announced Chen Du as the winner. Watching from the stands, Zhou's expression instantly turned ice cold as he silently vowed never to forget Chen Du. Teacher Yu praised Du for independently comprehending a mental martial art, explaining that such an achievement proved his mental power possessed the potential to surpass level 15. Once Du's life intensity caught up, he would undoubtedly become one of humanity's top martial artists, making him a quasi-A-class genius. Teacher Ping immediately suggested offering Du an A-class letter of intent, even though contracts at that level were extraordinarily rare. Teacher Yu agreed that Du's abilities already possessed strategic level value, but explained that issuing an A-class or S-class contract required the principal's personal approval. Determined not to lose him, the two immediately contacted the principal. Inside a hallway at High City No. 1 High School, Teacher Yu explained the situation over the phone. Principal Peng Tianwen of Keelin Martial Arts University listened carefully and admitted Du's desire to become stronger in order to protect his family was particularly interesting. He agreed that, based on Du's extraordinary potential, an A-class letter of intent was completely justified. However, allowing Du to relocate his family into the first biosphere directly violated the regulations of high martial civilization. Teacher Yu quickly pointed out that the other two elite universities had already recruited multiple A-class talents that year, while Keelin had only just discovered a quasi-A-class genius in Du. If they signed him early and helped raise his life intensity, they might finally improve their results in the upcoming 3-university freshman joint martial arts tournament instead of finishing third every year. After considering everything, Principal Pang decided to think it over and instructed Teacher Yu to wait for his final decision. Later that afternoon, during the tournament's closing ceremony, Du stepped onto the stage to receive the championship medal as the announcer officially declared Chen Du of the Liang City team the winner of the 100 Cities Hegemony Tournament, making him the first competitor in Liang City's history to claim the championship. After claiming the championship, Du quietly reflected on everything that had brought him to that moment. If he hadn't defeated the two-faced three-knife bears inside the crystal space the previous night, his mental power would have never reached level 10. Without that breakthrough, he never would have comprehended War Stomp. Looking back on his battle with Xiao, Du honestly admitted that if they fought again, she would never give him enough time to charge another mental attack or allow him to close the distance. Under those circumstances, he knew he would lose. Even so, he smiled to himself. There were no second chances or what-ifs. He had already won, and that was all that mattered. Meanwhile, inside High City No. 1 High School, Principal Zhou remained alone in his office before inviting someone inside. A woman entered and questioned why he had skipped the award ceremony, missing the perfect opportunity to meet Chen Du after everyone else had already left. Zhou calmly replied that there would be another chance. He then revealed that he would soon return to the Extreme Martial Palace and instructed her to notify the other 3-star deacons that the dynasty plan had officially begun. She quietly accepted the order. Back home, Du's family prepared a celebration feast. His father proudly praised him for bringing the 100 Cities Hegemony Tournament Championship back to Liang City, while his mother excitedly congratulated him. His sister happily revealed that the entire city was talking about his victory. Smiling, Du reassured them that he had earned a generous prize, so their family would never have to worry about money again. Everyone raised their glasses together, and Du quietly realized that moments like these with his family were what true happiness really meant. Later that evening, while walking with his sister, Du asked why she had suddenly chosen to live on campus. She smiled and explained that she wanted to become stronger just like him, so she would never embarrass the family. Du laughed and encouraged her to train seriously so all the time he spent taking her to school wouldn't be wasted. Suddenly, he stopped walking. His sister teasingly asked whether another group of fans had come to surround him. Then both of them noticed something standing ahead. A silver demon blocked the middle of the street. Du's expression immediately changed. He couldn't understand how a monster like that had appeared inside the city. His first thought was that Liang City had already fallen, but no invasion alarm had sounded, meaning the city's defenses were still intact. That left only one terrifying possibility. These monsters had been hiding inside the city all along. Glancing at his smartwatch, Du saw 8 barbs protruding from the demon's body, confirming it possessed level 8 life intensity. Realizing the overwhelming danger, he immediately stepped in front of his sister and ordered her to run. The silver demon rushed toward them at incredible speed. Cold sweat rolled down Du's face as he searched desperately for a weapon, only to realize he had left his sword at home. Spotting a steel rebar among nearby rubble, he grabbed it without hesitation. Blue energy erupted around his body as the silver demon swung its enormous fist. Meeting the attack head-on, Du unleashed flowing light sword art, Breeze in the Forest. The improvised weapon released a powerful burst of energy, but Du instantly realized the steel rebar lacked the flexibility of a real sword, preventing him from fully executing the technique. Exploiting the opening, the silver demon struck again, blasting Du backward across the street before he finally managed to regain his footing. After quickly judging the situation, Du realized the monster's life intensity exceeded his own by 2.1 levels. Without a proper weapon, victory was impossible. His only hope was escaping. As the silver demon closed in, his sister suddenly stepped forward and challenged the monster to attack her instead. Du was horrified. The demon immediately turned toward her. Terrified for his sister's safety, Du charged forward and shouted for it to stay away before instantly activating War Stomp. The silver demon shuddered under the devastating mental attack. As Du prepared to fight with everything he had left, the system suddenly announced that his flowing light sword art had advanced from tier 199% to tier 199.1%. Du immediately understood something. Through comprehension by analogy, even an ordinary steel rebar could temporarily function as a sword. Smiling, he swung it down with all his strength, only for the steel bar to shatter under the tremendous force. Du stared at the broken weapon in disbelief, as fragments scattered across the ground. With no other choice, he grabbed his sister and tried to flee, while ordering his smartwatch to send an emergency distress signal. Before they could escape, however, the silver demon suddenly appeared in front of them once again. Du couldn't believe it had become even faster. He realized help from the City Defense Corps would never arrive in time. Gritting his teeth, he decided that if the next punch killed him, he would at least use the impact to throw his sister to safety. Just as the demon attacked, it was suddenly struck down. Only then did Du finally relax. A man carrying a spear reported that the target had been eliminated and confirmed there were no casualties. He asked whether Du was injured before introducing himself as Hu Chong of the City Defense Corps. After receiving reports from nearby civilians, they had arrived just in time. Overcome with relief, Du's sister finally calmed down while Du thanked Hu Chong and introduced himself. Hidden nearby, Principal Lee quietly observed everything. The man standing beside him complained that Lee had never mentioned Du possessed a mental-type martial art. That golden technique had instantly severed his control over the silver demon and nearly ruined the entire operation. Principal Lee calmly replied that this only proved the man's martial arts training was still lacking. As for Du's safety, he had already arranged for Ling Yun and Hu Chong to remain close enough to intervene. He hoped tonight's carefully orchestrated encounter would make Du realize something important. Later that night, inside the martial arts building at Liang City No. 1 High School, Du sat alone on the floor. His sister sent him a message asking how he was feeling. He reassured her that he was fine, but asked her to keep everything that happened a secret from their parents. He then transferred her 1,000 wen. She immediately understood and promised to stay silent because Hu Chang had given her the same instruction. Looking down at the fresh wound on his arm, Du frowned. Only now did he realize how naive he had been. Danger had never been far away. It had been hiding beside him the entire time. If another disaster struck while he was studying at Mount Huang Martial Arts University, he would never make it back in time to protect his family. He finally understood that he was still far too weak. The silver demon possessed mediocre martial arts, yet its overwhelming life intensity alone had nearly crushed him. Life intensity was the foundation of everything, but raising it required enormous resources. The very resources Keelan Martial Arts University had offered him. Clenching his fists, Du realized how short-sighted his earlier decision had been. The best way to protect his family wasn't by staying beside them. It was by becoming stronger as quickly as possible. Strong enough to destroy every enemy before they ever had the chance to threaten the people he loved. Just as Du was lost in thought, someone quietly entered the room. It was Principal Lee. Surprised, Du asked what had brought him there. Smiling, Principal Lee replied that he had come to deliver a gift as thanks. Confused, Du asked what he meant, so Lee explained that both he and Mayor Wang had only hoped Du could reach the top 10 in the 100 Cities Hegemony tournament. Instead, Du had shattered every expectation, becoming the first student in Liang City's history to win the championship. That victory dramatically boosted the school's reputation, made recruiting talented students much easier, and even advanced Principal Lee's own career. Du accepted the gift with gratitude. Principal Lee then casually walked over to the refrigerator, took out a bottle of water, and handed it to him. Seeing how naturally the principal moved around the room, Du curiously asked why he seemed so familiar with the martial arts chamber. Principal Lee smiled and revealed that the room had originally belonged to him, though he believed it suited Du much better now. A moment later, Lee noticed Du's clothes were covered in dirt, as if he had been rolling around on the ground. Du remembered Hu Chang's warning not to tell anyone about the Silver Demon incident, but since only he and Principal Lee were present, he decided there was no harm in asking for advice. He admitted something had been weighing on his mind before revealing that he had encountered a level 8 Silver Demon inside the city. Unable to understand how such a monster could appear within Liang City, he asked Principal Lee to explain the truth. Lee deliberately acted shocked, but inwardly, he had been waiting for Du to bring up the topic. After Du assured him he was unharmed and simply wanted to understand what had happened, Principal Lee finally became serious. He explained that the answer was a secret known only to martial artists and those who stood above them. Ordinary civilians could never be allowed to learn it. When Du asked what would happen if the truth were exposed, Principal Lee quietly answered that revealing it would shake the very foundation of high martial civilization and cause its entire social order to collapse.